Welcome to Travolting, hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering Blowout with very special guest Mark Tilley. Let's begin.
We're recording.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I heard the beep. Mark heard the beep.
A second.
I didn't hear the beep.
Because you don't have headphones on.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this episode of Travolting. As you have just heard in that intro, we are covering the film Blowout today, and we are joined by a very special guest, Mark Tilley.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. He's here. He's in the house.
That's Mark for folks who...
Blow out the microphone there.
As always, joined by Stuart.
Hey, folks. Happy to talk about a film about a sound recordist.
Yeah, the one and only.
The one and only.
Yeah.
I'm so glad there's a movie about a sound recordist.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever discovered any murder plots in your time as location sound?
No, but there's a great HBO documentary.
I've already lost interest.
But the sound recording in Blowout is so like, he makes it seem like so simple, and not simple, but like there's like no disruptions. Everything
Yes.
is the most peaceful sound recording. It's all like nature. Like,
Yeah. It's not what I
it's so
get.
analog. and,
Whenever I
like,
go out in the middle of the woods and I'm like recording anything, it's usually like I hear a bunch of like not pleasant things. So, but no, I do want to talk about this HBO documentary for people.
You hear
we'll
like
let you do it.
Werner Herzog being like, you don't hear the peaceful sounds of the forest. You hear the fornication, the death of the jungle.
I'm going to move this mic a little bit closer to you, Jeff, just because it is
This is already a Buck Wild episode.
He's in action. Oh my
No,
gosh.
but okay, this HBO documentary, I got to figure out like what it's called. But basically
It's probably just called like the sound recordist.
no, it's not. It's
Sound.
I feel like I know what you're talking about though.
It is about this murder mystery about this guy who got away with it.
No, I
like,
don't.
He supposedly killed 3 people. Like, he was confirmed he killed 1 person, but he was found not guilty out of a self-defense thing, which was really dumb because he butchered the body. But anyway, he was also suspected for 2 other murders. Folks who listening, like, type in the comments what the name of this documentary is. I'm too lazy to look it up. But anyway,
Or email us travoltingpodcast@gmail.com.
yeah. At the very end of the documentary, like they have this like evidence against him, like the documentary crew, and they're asking him about it, and he's like denying it. And I think, okay, I think we're done. So then he like,
Oh, it's the Jinx.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Called the Jinx.
Okay, there we go.
So
Isn't
he
that the
goes,
James Franco show.
no, it's not the James Franco show. So the guy then has to like, oh,
that's
is there a
the-
bathroom nearby? So he goes to a bathroom. He has his lav still on.
Yeah.
And while he's like peeing in the urinal, they pick up on the audio recording the guy saying like, "Oh man, they got you. I'm caught. I did it. I did it. I killed them all." And it was like the sound recorders got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I really like Blowout for that reason.
I mean, this is pretty much the fictional version of that.
It is a fictional version of that. Yeah.
Also, like the James Franco show is called The Deuce, not the Jinx.
Yeah, not the Jinx, but
Very,
remember the last time we did an episode with Brian De Palma as a director, and we said it like 50 times.
Yeah, this is a movie directed by Brian De Palma.
Came out in 1981.
Came out in 1981. It's called Blowout.
Directed by Brian De Palma.
Yes, indeed.
Just making sure
Can
we
confirm.
get started on that.
1981.
1981.
A year
We have
after
officially
Urban Cowboy.
entered the 80s.
We have entered the 80s. That's right.
I mean, we entered the 80s, I think, with Moment by Moment.
No,
was
Urban Cowboy.
Urban Cowboy was like
80.
The 80s, but that movie like it like
It
didn't
was shot in
it did-
79
It didn't
probably.
feel like a new generation. It just felt like Saturday Night Fever, but in Texas.
This feels
And
like
with a
80s.
mechanical bull. This,
Yeah.
this is the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah.
Is Moment by Moment his first movie after his Oscar?
Grease.
Grease. Nomination.
Grease Grease came out, I believe. He was filming Grease during the nomination, I believe, and
Sure.
it came out after he was nominated.
Yeah, I think that's
And then Moment by Moment was like the sophomore slump. It was just him getting out of that contract with Robert Stigwood.
I only remember dinosaurs in that movie.
Oh yeah, there were dinosaurs. Was there? No, wait, there weren't any dinosaurs. This is how much I remember this movie,
But
folks.
John Travolta and
You've listened to this episode, you know.
his name is Strip, Mark.
Moment by moment.
John Travolta's character name, moment by moment, his name is Strip.
Strip
What's that
Harrison.
movie about?
Moment by Moment is a movie.
No, I'm not doing
It's
this.
about John Travolta and Lily Tomlin.
Oh,
And they come across each other on the street, and then the movie more or less ends. They just kind of start sleeping together. And that's the whole movie.
refuse to believe Lily Tomlin's in a bad movie.
I have bad news for you. It is also directed by her wife,
Okay.
Jane Wagner.
Jane Wagner. I believe it's the only movie she ever did.
You know, also going back to Blowout, when I looked at the credits, there's a co-director here.
Is there?
Yeah, John G. Fox on IMDb. If you look up the movie on IMDb in the director field, there's 2 directors credited, Brian De Palma and John G. Fox. I looked him up, and like this is his only feature that he's ever supposedly directed. Everything else, it's like he directed like maybe a TV episode or wrote for a TV episode, but it's a very short list. So I'm like,
Is it in like the assistant directors category in IMDb, like where they put like the ADs and like this? It's like the unit guys.
Let me check,
no,
let me
it's more
check.
like producer and like writer. Like it's a very short list of what he's done. And I think the last thing he did was maybe something 2 years after Blowout, and then nothing else.
I'm investigating this.
Yeah,
John
John G.
G. Second unit. He's the second unit director.
But he's listed.
But he was
at top.
he's listed at top with
Yeah.
Brian De Palma.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe second unit was a sizable part of this.
Maybe.
He was the producer of a TV special called Honky.
What if this is like one of those fake IMDb things?
What if this guy's not real?
Could be.
Well, I feel like I had the credits pulled up on that movie. Boop, boop.
Speaking of IMDb credits, I watched Minari over the weekend. Lovely movie.
What?
Minari. It's a film that just came out.
Do you like sobbing?
Sometimes. Sometimes I like sobbing.
Great movie. But I looked up the kid in it. Kid Alan S. Kim. He's like 10 years old. He plays David in the movie.
My goddamn
Has
hero.
the single cutest IMDb page I've ever read. It is written like a high school book, like a play report. Like, you know how they're like, yeah, write your bio for the play booklets that we're passing out.
Yeah.
I'm reading it over your shoulder. Oh my god.
This kid, this 10-year-old little boy, his IMDb bio is, Alan S. Kim, who plays the role of David in Minari, is thrilled to make his film debut. Recently, he was shown in the national campaign of Pottery Barn Kids. Alan is in the 2nd grade, and his favorite subjects are math and science. Oh my god. He also loves riding a bike and making something creative in his free time. Is that not the cutest shit you've ever heard in your life?
Jesus Christ.
Oh, man. So Blowout, guys.
Oh, yeah, so... Yes, Blowout. Extremely hype movie.
Directed by Brian De Palma.
Directed by Brian De Palma.
Came out in 1981.
In the arc of Travolta's career,
Yeah.
which we have been tracking with this show, that is our primary reason for existence. It's coming shortly after his work in Urban Cowboy and Moment by Moment that
Which-
you folks have recently listened
Yeah.
to.
Moment by moment. Not a success. Urban Cowboy, a decent success.
After his Oscar nomination with Saturday Night Fever and like huge popular success between Welcome Back, Kotter, a show we're never going to cover, and Grease.
Fuck you guys. I think we're going to cover Welcome Back, Kotter.
If you thought we were, you were wrong.
Get out. We don't want you here.
Moment by moment.
But after his tremendous success in those, Moment by Moment was a bit of a stumble. Urban Cowboy was a back to basics return to form for him. It's pretty much just Saturday Night Fever, but in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said that like 3 times already. But after that, his old collaborator, Brian De Palma, who we worked with on Carrie,
Yeah.
decides, I have an idea for this guy in a role he's never done before. And I would very much say, to me, this feels like Travolta's first adult performance.
Interesting.
He feels like a kid up through Urban Cowboy in every movie.
Yeah.
Like, even in Moment by Moment, he's playing... Like, Greasy's literally playing a teenager.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Fever, he says he's like 18 in it or something.
18, 19.
Moment by Moment, he's like a runaway kid.
He's a runaway kid.
Even if he is an adult, he's never grown up.
Right.
He stops being an adult in Urban Cowboy when he shaves the beard.
True. He becomes a baby in that.
Yeah, he literally becomes a baby who just beats his wife for the majority of the movie.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, this really
feels
is
like his
first
first adult
role.
performance. And I think it's hugely important for his.
Yeah,
like,
Pauline
career
Kael said the same thing in her
yeah,
in her review of the film. She said, playing an adult, his first, and an intelligent one. He has a vibrating physical sensitivity like that of the very young Brando.
I miss Pauline Kael.
Right.
But yeah, so I think it's very interesting in terms of how his career is going at this point, that he's finally graduating into an adult performance, as we'll say. But then his career pretty much completely plummets after this.
Yeah, and we'll obviously get into that, but this movie had a revival in the 90s because like when it first came out, it did not do well in the box office. People were not going to see this twice because of its ending, which we'll talk about. But we really got to credit one person. That's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino's the reason this movie made like a comeback, and it's like finally being hailed as like Brian De Palma's secret masterpiece.
Carried that shit on his back.
Yeah, well, and this was part of the reason why he really considered Travolta for Pulp Fiction role was because he loved him in this movie, and like you said, like he was being slept on a little bit as an actor.
Well, before we get too much into what this movie does and its impact and all that, let's just get into the movie, shall we?
Let's talk about the movie. Talk about the perfect beginning. This is the best, like the start of the movie. Oh, it's really good.
Talking about that.
Like fake movie.
Sure, no, the fake movie, but also the Filmways pictures, like logo fanfare with all of its like
popping out,
the lights and stuff like that. I was just like, this is the best studio film logo I've ever seen. What production company is this?
The best ever though is obviously Orion.
Orion.
I got to go with Orion.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna go with Tommy Wiseau.
Just
Tommy Wiseau and all of his like repeat name.
And then the fucking tree in Blade Runner. I think it's the log company. It's just the tree that just builds and builds.
Oh yeah.
Number 3 for me.
Number 3.
But the beginning.
Yes. So Filmways logo pops up. Filmways, are they still around?
Probably not.
I feel like every time I look up a company from the 80s, it just does not exist anymore. Oh,
what else do they do?
The Wikipedia just starts with Filmways was. Okay, they do not exist anymore.
Yeah.
They did a bunch of TV shows.
Sure.
The last movie they did was called Summer Lovers,
which was a Travolta and Olivia Newton-John
film. This
film.
had quite the scandalous poster.
Yeah.
There's no John Travolta in it. But.
Oh wait, am I thinking of a different film?
It was. Wait. It was directed by Randall Kleiser, our friend from Grease and Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Wow. Randall, what are you doing, man?
All the people at home right now are so interested in me talking about this movie that
Summer Lovers.
That happened to be the end of the Filmways brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Filmways logo.
Yeah. Before we start with the opening of the movie, I did have a pretty interesting fun fact. This is
Tell us.
Part a remake of a Michelangelo Antonioni.
Blow Up.
It's a fun name to say. Movie called Blow Up.
Blow Up.
From the 60s, right?
Yeah, from the 60s. Except in that one, it's photographs instead of sound.
Yeah. I was going to watch it this morning because it was on HBO Max
it?
last night. And then I went to watch it this morning. Gone. I was so pissed.
It's a conspiracy.
Disappeared.
I know. I was really going to do my homework. But...
It's a conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an adaptation or remake.
It's a slight remake of that movie.
Yeah.
And Brian De Palma brought on his collaborators, John Travolta, Nancy Allen, to make this movie.
Yeah.
And
we'll talk about Nancy Allen.
Yeah, I like her in this.
Oh my God.
I don't like her.
I can tell we might be having some beefs on this one.
We might be. But
yeah, the movie starts as with a fake movie.
With a fake movie, which I did not realize. So as soon as this movie starts and I hear like the monster breathing, I'm like, the fuck is this intro?
Yeah.
They're like,
and then like gets to the sorority house.
Yeah, and it's like VHS like quality up on the screen. I'm like, is this home movie gonna look this is? I thought Criterion did a remaster.
Right.
And so we were going through a sorority house with like a peeping cop, but like this VHS video footage is from the perspective of a killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he walks up behind a cop who's like staring at some nude sorority girls.
Yeah.
And he stabs the cop.
Yeah.
And then he just stands outside the window, and everyone's looking out the window, and they
people
don't see him.
Like one
person sees
girl does see him, like when they're in the middle of having sex, and she sees him, and it's like, oh my God.
but with like the effect of like, hey, quit it.
And by the way, like, for whatever reason, like, that scene is weird because like it's supposed to like imitate coitus, but they both have underwear on, and I'm just like, I mean,
It's so red I couldn't tell.
right.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
You know what I wrote, is this guy invisible? Because no one's seeing him. But then he does get in, and he
Walks right
follows
around.
a girl into the. He just walks around, and like that's when I was like, is he really invisible? Because no one's seeing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's walking around with a knife in his hand.
Yeah. And then we see his reflection in the mirror, and it's
And he looks like
that is-
that. And you're like, no one's noticing a guy who looks like that.
That is the funniest part of this whole movie. Is when the guy looks in the mirror and he just like has this
he has this weird
he has this
expression on his
weird
face.
expression.
Well, he's got like this green like
wearing-
jacket on
He's wearing
with
like
like
a bellhop uniform.
yeah, and he's got glasses, and he's a little overweight too, and all that stuff. And it's like, what is the fuck is this?
It's like Stephen Root from Office Space. Is kind of what he looks like too. He's like,
So then he turns his gaze to the girl who's showering right now.
a shower.
Shower.
Never
De
happened
Palma
before in
riffing on a
random
shower scene.
I know. Next, there's going to be some violin strings in here. Yeah, exactly. And so
Walks up to her with a knife,
and then she screams.
and yes, she
But
screams.
that scream. Can we let's all three do our best impression of what this
Should we do
scream
it at the
is?
same time?
No, I think we
Okay,
gotta go
fine.
one at a time. And so this is my version of when we hear the scream. It's like, oh,
Jeff.
Jeff, Mark. So needless to say, it's a bad scream.
Yes.
It's a really bad scream.
And then we break the world of the movie
Yeah.
into the sub. I mean, we break the sub movie into the movie.
into the actual movie, which is John Travolta, who is a sound technician.
Mark, did you pull up the whole script?
So if I wanted to bring up fun fact. That whole sequence is 8 pages in the script.
Wow.
It's 8 pages. And there's
Whoa.
a bit more, but like I think he just writes very detailed, like every step and corner of this
Yeah.
guy's. He's a
Lot of
very like he'll like describe rooms in his script. He's very like oriented like
maybe
that.
3 minutes in the movie.
Yeah,
Ready?
no, I know.
It's 8 pages.
Barely.
Amazing.
So, yeah, John Travolta is a sound technician, and he's sitting next to the director. They're in this like little post-sound mixing stage or theater, you might say, and they're going through like the film, which is a film we saw, which is a film that they're making in this world.
Yes.
And they're talking about this horrendous scream, and the director's like, "Did you fucking make that with a cat or something?" He's like, "That's her scream."
He's like, that's you screaming, John.
It's like that is the actress's scream right there. It's like, play that back, isolate it. And then he does the whole technical gizmo
Yeah.
thing, plays it back, and sure enough, that scream is the actress. So it's like, got to get a better scream. Which, might I say, I love this like thread that just takes it goes
Yeah.
through the entire movie, and it's got jokes later on that I love, and their payoff is so good.
This would have been the perfect, like, for a lesser director, just this would have been a throwaway gag at the beginning, just to establish that he is a sound person.
But they keep it.
They keep this going the whole movie,
Yeah.
and it is the climax. Like, the final moment of this movie is payoff to this scene.
Yeah, it's brilliant in my opinion.
And another great thing about the scene, and it happens later with the sound recording section, but showing him, like, scrubbing through the movie at that screen, it's just building up our knowledge of how the technology in this movie works.
Yeah, he's teaching it to you very simply in its kind of most simplest form.
Yeah, and so that later when, like, the characters are just doing things, we don't have to, like, be explained what's happening. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is that thing he did earlier. I understand why it's happening and what's going to do.
And it's basically just that like audio and like film can go forwards and backwards.
Yes.
It doesn't really, you don't need to
There's a
know
fast-
anything more about it than that.
Well,
Like,
especially like so for the audience, like yours truly, co-host, is a sound technician who's worked in this sound in the film industry for about 5 years now, and so I'm watching this and I'm looking at every piece of gear this guy owns, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool little field mixer. It's like tape recorder. That's like a chef shotgun mic. That's like this, and I'm like looking at all this stuff because like I never worked on tape. I was always digital. So he's like hanging like these tape strips up later on in the movie when he's like organizing all of his sound effects. And like when he's like marking the tape or when he's going to cut and isolating it and syncing the video with the photographs and the tape, all that stuff I just found super, super interesting. So
I don't mean to roast anyone who was alive in 1981, but Like, was it like revolutionary, the concept of fast forward and rewind when this movie came out? I wonder.
I think it was just like
It's
you
not like
just had tape reels and you just like reeled it faster or slower. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it was. I think when it became consumer, like when consumers could do that, that was probably revolutionary. But probably in like the professional field with like industry, you had to be able to reel faster or slower because like you were trying to look for specific frame marks of when you're going to make your cut and like
Yeah.
sync things up.
Yeah.
But I think when you could do it from like a VCR button,
Yeah. Or like
that was
or
probably
like on a cassette.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in modern day, when you, dear listener, looking at your phone right now, can hit that 15 seconds forward button
Right.
and skip the next 15 seconds of our conversation. Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
But that is something that we have in modern rendition.
But so at any rate, after this whole thing, that's when we get the title sequence.
Yes.
Which is
Well, it blows out of the screen.
blows out of the screen. And weird sound effects for this.
Yeah, it's like
There's a lot of screeches in this, like I'm like, ooh, okay.
I'm curious. I didn't pay attention. Was it the same sound effect from the actual car crash?
I wasn't paying that close attention either. Might have been.
So I was curious if they just if they just played the sound effect from the car crash for the title.
Maybe, I don't know. I it could have been. I don't think so though.
Very well could have.
Yeah.
But
But
anyway,
we had that title sequence.
yes, he goes back to his office, and he's like working through his tapes and whatnot. And at the same time, we're cross-cut, like middle of the screen, with a news report,
Yeah.
which is giving us all the context.
Yeah.
It's like this guy, Mick Ryan, he's a politician. He's going to challenge the president for...
And he's winning at like 50% favorability.
Yeah, he's getting like 50% favorability and charge the president who has a low approval rating. Yeah. And
It's like the Back to the Future device.
yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, he's going to be the next president of the United States. I also think it's very interesting that this movie never says the name of the president.
Right.
Sure.
It kind of just... And it never really says a date necessarily.
Well, if this is before November 1980, and also imagining the movie came out, the movie was in production before 1980.
It would have been in production during the Reagan-Carter election.
Right.
And
While
it came
Carter
out-
was still
And it
president.
would have come out after Reagan became president.
So McRyan would have been the Reagan figure. Carter would have been the president figure.
But they say he's going to beat him in the primary.
Right.
So if it was Carter, he would be a Democrat primary.
Oh, okay.
However, it is very notable that I think it's important this movie doesn't name the president because it wants to give it this kind of like otherworldly timeless
ran against-
feel
It's
to
like
it.
Carter
it's like all presidents, and even like on the mural, you have all the
Yeah.
presidents, and you're like,
I mean, if you want to go really deep into it, there was a primary attempt in 1980 from Teddy Kennedy against Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
And Ted Kennedy's
oh,
was
yeah.
his whole like campaign was Chappaquiddick.
That
It
Chappaquiddick
was almost
issue.
defeated by him skidding a car into a lake and a woman died.
And yeah, that
And,
whole. Have you seen the movie? They came out with the movie about it.
I've not seen Chappaquiddick. Mark here is writing a paper about it, to my knowledge.
I was hoping you didn't know about that.
I didn't know that. I was aware you had to write a paper about Chappaquiddick.
Yep.
Yeah, that's due some point. Never. I'm never doing that. How did you know that this was a Philadelphia movie going into it?
I did not, and I got so
Okay,
hyped.
yeah.
I
didn't
didn't know it was
When's the
Philadelphia
first?
movie.
When's the first moment you realized?
I believe it was when we have that split screen going back to that where it's like the news broadcast about McRyan juxtaposed with Travolta going through all his film and like cutting it and essentially making a movie in a sense, quite literally, as we see the context and subject of the movie. There's a part where they're like, yeah, the parade's gonna go down Market Street to Penn's Landing, and I was like, yes.
Jeffrey from Philadelphia.
I am from Philadelphia.
Good to know for our
not.
audience.
I am. So I got so hyped at random parts of this movie. At one point, I just yelled out, "Reading Terminal Market!" Because like Philly is in a fair amount of movies. It's not like it has no representation. But there's always like the specific things that don't appear in like an Outsider's movie of Philadelphia.
It's got so many like specific locations
yeah.
that don't feel like other like
Where like only a Philadelphian, because Brian Palma's from Philly. Where only a Philadelphian would be like, yeah, I'm gonna set a set piece in that place. Like if Michael Bay filmed Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen in Philadelphia, you couldn't tell it's Philadelphia except for one wide shot.
See,
An outsider coming in is not really going to know
Yeah.
how to film that city. but a guy like De Palma who's from there, he knows the good spots. He knows the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that feature film set in Huntington, Indiana.
It's a
That
no.
we're probably never going to get.
I'm going to make a movie set in Huntington, Indiana one day.
Fuck you, I'm from Huntington. I should be the one to do it.
No, that's exactly
You're not gonna know the good spots.
I made a short film set in Huntington, Indiana called West Park. You can check it out on the film festival circuit. Sorry, shamelessly plugging my short film.
To the
here.
person watching this and listening to this episode 20 years from now, it is now available on Disney HBO Max Plus.
Yeah, I think it would be.
Yes.
So
That'd be a good time to use that 15-second button, people.
Yeah, now would be a good time to use that. You could just keep hitting that
episode
15
starts
second
now.
button. You could just keep hitting that 15-second button video, go to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And then it'll just pop up as listen to
Yeah.
on your Apple, so you don't feel guilty.
So,
But no, we're gonna have
back
fun.
to the movie.
back to the movie.
With this whole political news thing going on, and we're getting exposition about this Governor McRyan figure. That's when there's this cool like, little split screen thing going on
Yeah.
where he's like working on his sound effects, and that's where it sort of teaches the audience about how he works without like just telling us how it works. It's more just like showing us, oh, like this is how he like organizes all of his sounds. This is how he like makes the cuts. All while like side by side with like the political news segment stuff going on.
If a filmmaker can get me to understand like the technology or science of their movie without ever having to explain it to me, just from showing it to me at the beginning,
Yeah.
the best thing.
Right. And for sound, it's even because like everyone knows how to hit record on a camera. And
How do you do that?
well, do you have a phone, Jeff?
Yeah, you press
but
the right
like
button.
the whole, because all right, speaking from a sound person here, it's like sound is a thing that's like a lot of people don't know how it works, but they're just glad that there's somebody who does and can make it sound pretty good. Whereas like I was in a class one day and this is undergrad and my professor said like, so there's like two scenarios when you're working with a client. There's like the editor in the video and then there's like the sound designer. And the two scenarios go as so, where it's like the client will be watching the editor working. They'll be like, you need to fix this bit. The editor will do something. And the client goes, well, I could have done that. Same scenario. You're with like a sound technician. They're like, we need to fix this thing. Sound technician does some stuff, fixes it. And the client goes, I don't know what you did, but it worked. And that is what I love about how this movie does do that expositional explaining about how sound works. Because it is so much like you turn these knobs that no one knows what they do, but they make it work somehow. And that is absolutely how like sound is for engineers.
And all that pays off in the next scene.
Yeah.
When he was told by his producer, we need better wind and better nature sounds.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, what better place to get wind than just go out in the park at night?
Yep. Yeah.
That he does.
Also, before we get there, though, this is when I wrote down the hair, ... It's interesting. So let's add in that sound effect for the hair ranking segment of Travolting.
At what point did we get a sound effect?
I'm going to put something in.
Okay.
So I'm adding for a little pause here. So I'm going
Yeah.
to put it in this like hair ranking, and then it begins. So John Travolta's hair in this
We've
movie,
never had a
fellas.
sound effect before.
I'm so excited to hear it the first
I'm
time.
putting it in for this episode for the first time. So the hair.
Yes.
What are your folks' thoughts about the hair in this, as opposed to previous films of John Travolta?
I would say it's
Long.
it's totally acceptable. It's
Yeah.
not like
In this movie?
I think this might be his first character who doesn't really care that much about his looks.
Right.
So
That's an
he's
interesting
kind of
thought.
just got the
He's so stylized, though.
yeah, he's kind of just got that like 90s like swoop back.
This is
going
the
on.
80s, though, Jeff.
Well, what he has in the 90s, and he might have it for the rest of these 80s. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah, it's a little bit of floof in the back, but not long, not a lot.
It's basically the Pulp Fiction look minus the mullet.
It's really long in the back, though. He kind of has a mullet in this movie.
He does kind of have a mullet in this movie. I'm not like a hater of the hair in this because I agree. It's like he's an adult. He doesn't care too much about like what his look is like in this film. And so, what are we looking at?
just a shot from this
Wow.
movie.
Just
So,
Keep going.
transfixing. Oh my God.
at any rate, I would say that this is probably right up there with, I don't want to say Urban Cowboy, because Urban Cowboy wears a hat the majority of the movie.
Boo.
I would say this is just under Grease for me. This is just
under Grease.
Just under Grease because Grease is stylized short hair with a little bit of floof on top.
Yeah.
This is like relaxed hair with a little bit of floof in the back. So I favor Grease more, but this has like that casualness that is present in Grease.
I'm sure this is appropriate for the hair ranking section of the show.
Yeah.
He's very hairy.
Yes.
He's a hairy dude.
He is a
He's a
hairy
hairy
dude.
guy.
Right.
Is he this hairy in his earlier movies when he's younger?
We don't see quite that much of the rest of him in other movies,
Like a hairy
except
back.
for he's got like hairy back, hairy chest. He hasn't really been allowed to.
good.
He hasn't really been allowed to have that in a lot of movies.
It's like that first scene after, just ahead a second. It's when he's in the hospital. And he's being interviewed by the guy, and he has kind of like the very low crew neck, and the way his arm kind of wraps around his hair. This is the hair section. We're getting into it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. The hair segment of Travolta.
Right.
I guess it kind of also ties into that thing about this being his first real adult performance. Is that
a big boy.
Previously, he hasn't really been allowed to be a hairy guy. He's had to like look like a little cherub.
Yeah, he looks rugged in this.
Well, moment by moment, he is like basically nude. For, like,
He is nude for the majority of the movie.
Majority of the film, and he does have a hairy chest, not a hairy back, but a hairy chest for sure. Yeah.
But then it's interesting. I mean, this is really jumping ahead, but our next movie, I've seen some pictures.
That is like,
And he is like,
that is Rambo hair.
he
Staying Alive, it's Rambo hair,
yeah, he's looking a little rough in that.
which
one.
makes sense because the director of said movie is Rambo himself, Sylvester Stallone. Cue the accent.
Hey, no Adrian. I'm gonna literally, I am literally gonna do the whole next episode in that voice.
No, you're not.
But no, he was.
I will quit.
And then he has
don't know.
everything kind of shaved off by the next movie.
Was that the one sheet for the movie?
Yes.
And it didn't make $1 billion. It was a flop. You said? Oh my
Yeah.
god.
This is the hit sequel to Saturday Night Fever that we're covering next week.
He really does like look like Rambo.
He does look like Rambo. We'll talk about.
He looks like Jesus Christ Superstar.
This is the first time I'm ever going to pull myself back from a digression. We'll talk about Staying Alive next week.
Okay.
bridge. He's on the bridge. He's
So,
on the bridge.
yeah, as I said before, in conclusion for the hair ranking, I put this right under Grease.
Yes.
And this has been the hair segment brought to you by Travolting. Moving on to the plot of Blowout, 1981, directed by Brian De Palma.
Ba-da-dum.
Exit music.
Yes. There's no exit music. You folks have all been shammed.
So he's out recording.
He's out recording
in the park.
And this is, I mean, there's
We're
so
30
many
minutes in, by the
there's
way.
So many scenes in this movie I would say are my favorite scene in this movie.
Yeah,
This might be it
this is pretty good.
because he's like a conductor with his little he's with his little microphone.
That is
he's like whipping it around. He's like
Yeah.
For a little bit of historic sound technology context, this is a Schoeps microphone. SCHOEPS. Schoeps microphone. Yeah.
I'm gonna order 7.
Well, they're $3,000 a pop. So
I'm gonna not
they're
order
quite,
any.
They're
Yeah.
quite expensive microphones. But like, what's interesting about boom mic technology?
No. Yes. Please go on. Okay. Did you see me not blink there?
So what's interesting about boom mic technology is there are different boom mics that call for different scenarios. So for example, like you'll have boom mics which are cardioid polar pattern, meaning that it captures a wide field in front of it, but it's not like laser focused to like the end of the room, meaning you're holding a boom over somebody's head in like a dialogue scene where like maybe 2 people are on frame and you're capturing like that space around them that their voice is projecting versus you have though like an actual shotgun polar pattern shotgun mic, because there are shotgun mics that have cardioid polar patterns, but there's also called a shotgun polar pattern. For all of our sound nerds that are listening to this, you can check me on this. So the shotgun polar pattern, which is present on shotgun microphones, is that laser focus, like you aim the boom at like some wind chimes half a mile away and you only hear the wind chimes.
Is that what he's using here?
That's
Where
what
it's
he's
like a
using
laser
here.
pointer.
So it's like when people are like, would it be like that long? Like it is probably accentuated a little too much in this scene. Like the fact that he hears the entire conversation of a couple in the park
Yeah,
and he's
but
able to
it's like-
focus on a frog.
That's movies, man.
I mean, there's a bunch of like wind and
movies.
stuff and everything happening between the capsule of the microphone and the source that he's capturing. So we wouldn't be that crystal clear, but there are boom shotgun mic technologies that would allow them for like laser focused precision of sound pickups. So
his use of split.
I just think that's interesting.
It is. I agree. There's a lot of cool split diopter stuff.
But his use of the split diopters here is like, because in his movies prior, or the ones I've seen, I guess it's just Carrie. It can't be just Carrie. But his split diopters are very like emotional, like within the scene. And here they are, but they're more literal.
Yeah, they're
where it's
it's him and what he's hearing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He uses them a lot in this movie.
I mean, probably his best.
Yeah.
Probably
Because
his
Carrie,
best.
I feel like it's a nice like little medium where he uses diopters a few times, but this movie, it's like I wrote down the first diopter shot is with the owl, and it's 11 minutes in the movie.
Before.
There's even one before.
There's one in the opening scene. There's one. I mean, they're like, but that's how like. I mean, I think there's got to be one in the editing room, and then there's one even with the TV too when he's walking around doing his little thing. The TV is in the split.
De Palma just has such formal control.
You're not even processing them because you're just like
right.
I mean, that's like the showiest one.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably in existence.
He has like such control over the technique and the technology of these movies that. Something as simple as like focus, which is very important for a movie.
Yeah,
you see like what you're supposed to look at,
right?
But he uses it to such a pinpoint degree in this that like you're seeing two things in the frame, and even in Carrie, the two things you're seeing directly are intermingling with each other within the shot.
But like that's how effective his split diopters are in this sequence because like for Stuart, I mean like in terms of those beats, it's split diopter couple. Split diopter frog, and then the owl where you're just like, all right, I'm throwing my chair, this is like unbelievable.
The
like,
owl
you're just like slapping me in the face and then you're aware of it, but because it's so he's directing you so specifically, it's so effective.
If looks could kill,
when
that fucking owl turns around and looks right in the lens, and we're seeing,
dude, how do you think they reacted on set?
We're seeing a little Travolta like on the left side of the frame. And then this huge fucking owl, and it turns right to the camera on the right side of the frame.
Stuff.
I watched this on my fucking computer. I should walk out of the room.
If we're even
so stupid, I wish I saw this.
This might be a little too much, but it's almost like it's comparing Travolta to this owl.
Yeah, I mean,
and these owls are like creatures of like intense insight,
and it's
great
just,
ears.
It's like the head swivel.
Yeah, the head's always swiveling, listening and seeing everything. Mm-hmm. And it's comparing him and Travolta, who's just like always so keen and aware of his surroundings.
What's the beat right after the owl? Do you remember? Is the owl like reacting to something coming?
The owl turns to the car.
Yeah, the owl was like...
Because we don't get, in this initial scene, I don't think we've heard the photograph clicks.
We've not.
That's after when he re-looks through the footage and he hears and we don't know what to associate that with, and then we hear about the photographer.
Actually, wait. We do hear the photograph clips.
In the first
we hear it during the owl because we think it's the owl. It sounds like a bird. It sounds like a bird clicking.
I missed that. Interesting.
I'm getting so excited talking about this movie. Right
I'm really excited about this movie.
Let's do the crash, because then I have a big question that I can't forget to ask.
Yes.
About
just your mic.
Sure.
So it sounds like you think it's just a bird. You're like, it's not really a bird, but you're just like, I assume it is. At least I did.
Yeah,
and
I
then
did too.
And then he hears, and like you look, and there's a car careening around the corner. It's going crazy. It pulls up. You hear bang, another bang, and then pop, and then the car flies off the railing into the lake, and sinks. Travolta just goes, shit.
Oh my god! And what does he do?
And
he runs in, doesn't help. Like he just runs in.
He runs in to help, and like what I think is so cool is like in the background you see a dude in all black wearing a hat sneak away from the bridge.
I didn't see this.
Here's the thing. Because you see, because I watched that sequence again this morning.
Yeah.
You see the gunshot. You can see the smoke. You see the puff that he finds later.
Yeah.
The guy on the bank of the lake or pond or whatever, he's the guy recording the video.
Yeah.
He's on the opposite side of the bridge though. Or have I completely got the bridge wrong?
I think he's creeping under the bridge.
For viewers at home, I apologize. This is just Jeff confirming to me.
Okay.
He's
for folks listening, Mark is drawing a diagram
of this scene.
of the bridge right
Travolta's here. This is the road. The car's coming here. The guy, his angle of the footage. I'm like, this is like not like a CinemaSins thing, but because Brian De Palma is so specific in this scene, and I can see the gunshot, I want to know if I have it wrong.
I think
He's recording here.
Are you pulling up the scene, Jeff?
He's recording here. He sees the gunshot of the car. The car crashes on the bridge here and goes over.
Yeah.
He comes down. here where the guy is, because that's where the guy is
I think
recording.
he goes
The
the other
guy's
way.
over here. The guy's over here.
But the guy's
And I think Travolta goes like around here.
because Travolta like bolts like that, and then you see a guy creep out from underneath this side of the bridge. The audience is so enraptured when I hear me
Right.
describe this image, but you see the guy come out from this side of the bridge and creep up and then run across that way.
Okay, so I had it wrong because I thought I was like, he's on the opposite side of the bridge that his footage is filming, and I would, yeah,
So Travolta jumps in to help,
yeah,
Yes, he jumps in to help.
and that's when like this car is underwater, like it's
Yeah.
already like kind of kicked in, and he sees Nancy Allen. You know, when Nancy's now in this movie.
I typed blowout car crash to try and find that scene, and it is exclusively giving me like insurance quotes for like, if I had a blowout.
Mark is currently putting a straw into a Kool-Aid jammer pouch. Just for
You gotta
audience.
respect it.
very
honestly.
quietly.
Nah, you can do it in front of the mic. It's cool.
You gotta just blow out that thing.
Yeah. On a tangent, if anyone has a hair straightener and Kool-Aid, there's this trick where you can like take scissors and cut off the top of the Kool-Aid jammer, and you can mix in like alcoholic drinks and then take a hair straightener and like reseal the top of it, so you have an
Yeah, just seal
alcoholic Kool-Aid jammer.
So you just cut with
Yeah,
scissors
you just cut
here
that,
and reseal
open it, and then
Yeah. Tight. We'll remember.
Amazing.
Did you not know
We'll
that?
remember.
I'd never heard of that.
You never
Yeah.
thought to do that?
Yeah.
I'm a grown up who doesn't eat.
You guys
who doesn't drink
went
Kool-Aid.
to Columbia College Chicago, which is not a party campus.
Stuart, you also went to Columbia College Chicago.
In grad school, I have a
Yeah, because you're an old shit.
we're the same age, dude.
That's true.
But I went to Ball State a party school and I learned all these tricks. So
Watch out, guys.
Yeah,
he's,
watch
he's
out.
too he's too cool for this podcast.
I am too cool for this podcast. We don't want to talk about the shirt you're wearing right now.
No, we can't talk about the we cannot talk about the shirt I'm wearing until episode 60 of
For the
this.
viewers
Jeff
at home, I'm going
brought
to draw
a
a picture
container
of Jeff's shirt on my notebook.
of macaroni and cheese to this podcast. We had to wait on him to finish eating the macaroni and cheese.
You gotta get that cheese.
Gotta get that cheese.
I'm like, are you ready to start recording, Jeff? And he's like, 1 second.
I'm always late and I always forget to eat before I come here. And if I like don't eat, I'm just gonna get hungry during the show. So I need to do it.
You know what I do, Jeff?
What?
I suck it up and don't eat.
If you want to hear my stomach rumbling live on a recording, that's how we can do it.
So
Nancy
Anyway, yes,
Allen.
he pulls
Nancy
Nancy,
Allen
Allen out of
in the car.
Well, first he goes up the car and it's like the jaw shot where the body comes out.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, boom.
he's dead.
He hits the glass.
This guy's
like,
dead.
Nancy Allen, very claustrophobic, I
Yes.
read. Yeah.
Like in real life, and she was terrified during this.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Kudos to her. She did it
Yeah,
right.
no. Stunt coordinator on set didn't tell Brian De Palma that the stunt failed the first 2 times that day when they tried it, that the car like went down to the bottom of the pool they were shooting at. They couldn't keep it afloat. And he was just like, oh, we're just fucking not going to tell her. Holy shit.
We love to see it.
Plausible deniability.
Yep. He's got
No
professional liability
crossover
insurance.
themes with the movie there. Forcing my wife to do something she doesn't want to do.
Hey,
in-
De Palma, we got these actors insured, right? It's like, I think so. It's like, great, you're good to go.
Important note is
Do we have them in shirts? Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. I think.
important note. Brian De Palma is married to the Charles co-star in this movie, Nancy Allen, who we talked about a lot in Carrie. I don't think at that point they were not married. I don't think we knew.
I think they were married at that point.
I think that's where they met.
They met on Carrie.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
You're to say Carrie. Sorry, I thought you were saying they weren't married during Blowout. You're right. They were not married during Carrie. They were married during Blowout.
Yeah, they met during Carrie. Nancy Allen, a lovely actress. President Carrie. She did 2 other movies of De Palma's. This is her last one with him, and they split up a few years after this came out.
Yeah,
But they're married during the production of this.
probably because of the car scene.
Probably because of the car scene. She would go on to be in all 3 RoboCop movies.
Actually, I think the real reason is because De Palma told John Lithgow to actually stab her in the end of the movie. And they had to get a set medic to rush in at the end when she wakes up from her coma for 3 years. She's like, "Are you all right? Are you all right, Nancy?" He's like, "We're getting a fucking divorce."
I have a lot of thought about John Lithgow in this movie, but we'll get to him when we get to him.
Fucking love John Lithgow.
We're gonna get to him when we get to him. He pulls Nancy Allen out of this wreck.
Yeah.
Up on the shore.
We're 45 minutes into this podcast.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's fine.
And we're 12 minutes into the movie.
Just like De Palma takes 8 pages to write that
Yes.
script. The same ratio page.
We're going to ratio page.
Yeah.
He pulls her out, and we cut to a hospital. There's no business about how they get to the hospital. We just go to the hospital.
Real quick note about the car scene that move into the hospital is the score during the rescue scene. Tight.
Oh
Yes.
my god.
Tight.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing. Like the music in the background as he's like trying to bash in the rock in the window. Beautiful score. Yeah. And Brian De Palma actually said like this is his favorite score in his movies.
Tarantino uses this score in one of his movies later.
Of course. Why wouldn't you? It's a great
I
score.
think it's the Death Proof one. And by the Death Proof one, I mean just Death Proof.
Death Proof.
Yeah.
The one with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
I believe I read that he uses in that.
Cool.
Anyway, we're in a hospital.
We're in a hospital.
Nancy Allen has been sedated. Travolta's being interviewed by some cop who's like, and so you pulled the girl out? And he's
This
like,
cop is really
he's like,
dumb.
yeah, I pulled the
Yeah.
girl. And the guy's like, are you sure you pulled the girl out? and
like-
Travolta's like, yeah,
Travolta's
she's
playing
right there.
this like the audience is reacting like, yeah, that's what I just said. And this is when 14 minutes and 21 seconds, the cop then says the quote, and that's when you heard the blowout. And we
Yes.
get the title of the movie. 14 minutes, 21
My
seconds.
Little Women.
So yeah, cop talks to
Yeah,
Travolta.
then the cop just like fucks off.
And one thing, this is partly on me as a viewer, but I'm sure his character name was stated early in the movie, but this is like the first time I registered that his name was Jack. Before that, I was like, what's this guy's name? It's Travolta.
Jack Terry.
The hospital scene was when I really solidified, okay, his name's Jack.
Yeah, Jack Terry.
Jack Terry.
He's like, I want to go see the girl. And they're like, all right, she's been sedated. Just keep it quick.
Spoiler alert.
But like all fucking hell loose is breaking out behind them. That's what's so cool about this
Yeah.
interview scene is he's just like this like guy is just like badgering him in his ear. He's like, yeah, I told you I pulled him out of the like, what more do you want from me? And just like people are like being rushed with stretchers
Yeah.
and nurses are just like flailing in the background and
Yeah.
there's news reporters and they're like, keep everybody out.
Yeah.
And he's just and Travolta's just sitting there against the glass window and he's just looking so smug and so cool. Oh my god.
He's amazing.
Has he looked this cool?
No, this is the coolest.
This is the coolest.
this is
This
coolest.
is, I've said this already, but this is my favorite Travolta performance we've had so far.
Same.
This is also my favorite movie we've covered so far.
Same.
I think this movie's amazing, and I just think Travolta is so cool, in control. Like, he has a full grasp on his character in this.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to show off.
But what the movie asks him to do, he's so perfect for.
Yeah.
Because his face is so, and not even, it's not like even like the most like expressive face in the world. Because he really just has that like shit eating grin.
Yeah.
That smile. But that he can just, because the movie's asking him to do so much recording and looking and listening and thinking and just silently taping and smoking. He's so like, that one expression he's got where he can just be completely still and transfixing during it.
I'm looking up a piece of
It's just-
trivia from this movie. Oh, so fun fact: John Travolta suffered insomnia during the shoot, and according to IMDb, which is not totally accurate, but pretending this one is, his lack of sleep helped him create the very moody performance that we've seen, like his downtrodden self throughout the film, is because he was suffering insomnia throughout the film, which makes sense actually.
Yeah, I mean, he looks tired.
He looks really
tired.
tired.
He looks like he needs to get some
He looks
sleep.
so sleepy.
Yeah.
And he's got the best chin. What's up with his chin?
What's
up with his chin?
It's his chin.
It has like an indent in the
I'm
middle
like
of
kind
it.
of convinced that's the reason you guys are doing this podcast.
It's
It's because
just
of
a-
his chin.
Just to discover his chin.
Right?
Yeah, his chin's pretty dope. I don't know what you're looking at.
So
Jeff.
he's in the.
I'm just trying to find a quote.
So that's
Yeah.
He's
We should get
then
to Nancy
going
Allen,
to
'cause you have
check
some
out
thoughts.
Nancy Allen, and
Yeah.
she's not sedated. She's up and about,
up and
and just
about.
doing her own thing. And then he's like, "Oh, I need to go," and Jack is like, "No, you need to like stay here." And then he proceeds to ask her out for coffee, like after
It's like, yeah,
it's
you
like,
want to go get some coffee? I also like that Travolta's not doing a voice in this movie.
He's not.
It's
doing
just
it.
like every movie we've
Yeah.
covered so far, he's done a voice.
Right.
This is the first one I cover where he doesn't
Take
have
out
to
a
do a
missing
voice.
persons report.
Yeah, like in Grease was like, you want to, I don't know, check the yellow pages,
the
take out
yellow
a missing
pages.
pages report.
Or in Boy in the Plastic Bubble, it's like, Gina,
Is that a movie
you
you've
going,
covered?
Gina?
You guys have kept saying "boy in the plastic bubble," and I'm just like, okay, what's that? I have no idea what you guys talking about.
it's a TV movie that came out in
Mark,
19.
let me tell you something about Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Let me tell you something about that.
76.
boy.
No, we started this movie, Boy in the Plastic Bubble, and the credits are going up. It's like John Travolta, Gina Davis, all these actors, and at the end is a very special appearance by former astronaut Buzz Aldrin.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like I saw you tweet this. Oh my gosh.
And then and then the midway through the movie, they're watching TV, and Buzz Aldrin visits John Travolta's character, but it's just other characters watching it happen. There's never a close up of Buzz Aldrin. He's only in like one single wide shot on a news report.
I mean, he's probably not an actor.
And that's his whole role in this movie.
They probably didn't want to put a close up on him because it's like he's not an actor. It's like,
He's great in Transformers: Dark of the Moon.
Let's not go there. All right, Blowout. Blowout. Yeah, so Jack asks her out right after the accident. Like, ill-timed, dude. It's like she probably has a concussion right now.
Does he ask her out in
He's
the
like, we should
motel
go for
room or
coffee.
in the hospital room?
In the hospital room.
because she says she wants to go home with him because she's really sedated and she doesn't want to be in the hospital. She just doesn't like hospitals.
Because I know he comes back.
And he says, I'll take you. He's like, here's what we'll do. You stay here in the hospital for the night, and I'll take you for coffee tomorrow. So it's not quite him asking her out. It's kind of like he's offering her that so she'll listen to the doctors.
It sounded like he was asking her out for coffee.
Well, he does ask her out for the coffee, but I felt like that was in the motel room when he's like, oh, fuck, what does he say? He's like, that that like the very striking wallpaper.
Yes.
In that room.
Yeah.
This movie likes red, white, and blue.
Yeah, this movie likes colors.
Yeah, this movie likes colors.
It's almost like this movie is in some way about the American political system,
Right.
and how we are all very small
makes so
ants
much sense.
Here we
and
go.
capable
Gosh.
of changing it.
Oh my god.
Wow.
But we're gonna get to that at the end.
You're gonna talk about Reagan-land a lot in this, aren't you?
So, but in
If we're
between,
talking about the parallax view, I'm gonna have some Reagan
in
land
between
ideas.
the Jack and Sally conversation, he then goes back outside, and that's when there's all the police presence
Yeah.
and the media coming around, and then
and Mike Ryan's handler comes up.
Yes.
He's like, this guy like talks out of like the corner. It looks like his teeth are like nailed together. He's like, yeah, I work for Governor McRyan.
Jeff was doing a face with his teeth grind
Yeah.
together for folks. So yeah, he tells Jack,
never
it's
saw
like,
the girl.
The guy who was killed was Governor McRyan.
Who was going to be the next president.
And he
most
says,
likely.
like, just keep it under wraps. Like, no one needs to know that he was with somebody. And Travolta's like, but that's the truth. Like, he was with somebody. It's like, but
it's like-
it doesn't matter. It's like, do you want to...
He's like, the truth doesn't matter. What matters is the perception. You can't do that to his family.
Yeah,
Know that
that's
he
the thing. So
died
you can't
with
do this
a-
to his family. You want
that
his
he-
family to know
that he died with that whore.
in that last moment that he was cheating on his wife. So...
And Travolta's like, that's the truth. We got to present the truth. That's what I do as a filmmaker. Is I present the truth.
as a filmmaker and as a former cop buster, that's when we really get the motivation. You're kind of just
Yeah.
like, is he just like
Yes.
good guy? That's the truth.
Yeah.
Tell
Well,
the truth.
I mean, we're gonna get there in a moment,
Yeah.
but that is something good to like say. It's like, beforehand, like when I think of this guy as like a sound technician, like sound guys, for folks who aren't familiar in the film industry, sound guys sit on chairs on set, so they're not like the most active like beings. And when I see John Travolta like as active as he is, diving into a river, going the extra mile to investigate what's going on, I'm like, he's not just a sound guy. Because the sound guy would be like, okay, whatever, next job. And then when we get that scene later on in the movie that we're going to talk about, where we find out that he worked for like the internal affairs for police or whatever, and like was investigating corrupt cops, I'm like, oh, so his like background in law enforcement makes him like this extra charge to like find the truth and stuff, which makes sense. So, but we'll get there.
Yeah. I have a sound mixer story to tell you when we're off air.
I have lots of sound mixer stories.
It's
All right, I'm
it's
writing
re-
that down furiously.
It's a really good one I got to tell you about.
You don't want to say it on the air?
I cannot say it on the air.
Okay.
But
Spicy.
yes. But yeah, so the guy's like, you need to get the girl out of here.
Yeah.
And Troller's at that point just been like, why am I getting her out?
I was going to say, like,
Oh, so he takes her to the hotel. He
Yeah.
takes her
normal
to the
procedure
hotel.
would be a cop would drive her home,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, we're
it's like,
just,
no, we need her out of here. We
the
can't
witness and the victim are
we
going to
can
go
have-
together.
Yeah, we can have no evidence that she was there. And so
Yeah.
Travolta's just like, sure, whatever. So he goes back in. He's like, hey, remember how I said you need to stay here tonight? We're
Yeah.
leaving now.
We're leaving right now.
And they're in the car together. And Nancy Allen's just like slurring her words and talking stuff because she's drugged.
Yeah.
She's doing like a Harley Quinn accent.
So this actually explains a lot, because I must have missed when they said like she's sedated, because I watched that entire like
Yeah.
portion of the movie. It's like, why is she acting like
That's
this?
where she's just kind of like,
And it's
hey, why are you doing this?
I just want to go home
because
with you.
at first I was like, is she doing a Philly accent?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. My mom has a really thick Philly accent. So I was like, no, that's not a Philly accent.
What's your mom sound like?
I can't do it. I wish I could.
You could do all the presidents, but you can't do a Philly
I can
accent.
do one
You could do
president.
Sylvester Stallone.
We-
you could
we-
do John Travolta. You could do a New York accent.
We have covered
You
this.
can't do
I
a
can
Philly
do
accent.
one president.
true.
Reagan?
It's Bill.
Okay.
My
Does-
name is Bill Clinton,
he does
and
a
I
great
support
Bill
this
Clinton.
message.
Can you?
I did not inhale.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted to hear.
That's what I mean. He does a great Bill Clinton.
Yes.
So
That's the only one I can do.
he takes
but,
her to the motel.
Yes, he takes her to the motel. And I think they just wake up the next morning. I don't think
he-
there's much that night while they're there.
Well, what happens? He like puts her on the bed and lets her go to sleep, and then he goes to his car and gets out
yes.
his like mixing gear, and that's when he's like already starting to retrace all the sounds that he was
and he
hearing.
spends the whole night figuring out like what sound
he goes back to his studio, right? Because that's maybe that's maybe my favorite scene of the movie, maybe other than the end. Is when he's piecing it back together.
Yeah,
is when he has the headphones on with the pencil. That's the shit for me.
I think that's at the motel. I think he does all that.
Is it in the car?
No, he just goes inside the motel room while Sally's sleeping, and he sits on like one of like a desk chair.
I think in the motel he's just listening and he hears. He's
gunshot.
like, no, that's a gunshot.
Yeah.
And he keeps like listening to it, and he falls asleep.
But yeah, I think.
And then the next morning, Nancy Allen wakes up and she's like, "Well, you're here the whole you were."
He goes back to his studio because he makes he goes and he does all the rewinding. Is he rewinding in his car? He has the thing where he can like.
Yeah, I think he has the rewind thing with him. Regardless, eventually, like he's there and she wakes up.
Yeah, and then he asks her out.
And he asks her out.
Oh well, I wrote down a quote here, and that is from Nancy Allen. So you want some coffee?
Oh yes, you want some coffee.
It's real strong.
And she's like, "Let's get coffee." And he's like, "No, I heard a gunshot." I don't know why I just started doing Urban Cowboy Travolta on that.
There's another awesome quote where she's like, where they're talking about like, what do you do? It's like, I do sound for movies. It's like, oh, cool, like big movies. And he just the best delivery I've ever seen Travolta do. He's just working. He's not like paying that much attention.
Mm-hmm.
He's just looking down at his work. He's like, no, just the bad ones.
Yeah.
Just very straight. And I love it so much.
Yeah.
So at any rate,
She runs off because he offends her by just being exclusively interested in like hearing the gunshot.
we learned beforehand she does makeup.
Yeah, she does makeup.
She does makeup.
She does makeup
for people.
She wants to do it in movies, but for now she only does it like at stores.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after she leaves, we're back at the studio.
He goes back to the studio, and that's I think with the pencil where he starts like really piecing the whole thing.
Okay, maybe
together.
it's there then.
Because that's the one where he's like he finds like the sounds and he puts like the X on them.
Yeah.
Like specifically where the gunshot happened, where the blowout happened, where like the photo clicks happened.
And this is when also during like the news scene where we find out there was a photographer there.
Yeah, there was a photographer there.
I have some beef with this photographer bit in the movie.
You have some beef with him?
So like he was a photographer, not a filmmaker. And we're going to get to this throughout the movie, but like the way he pieces it together, he puts together like a motion clip, like as if he took like 24 frames per second.
I
pictures
believe
of
the
this
guy
car.
said he had like a 35 millimeter camera.
Yeah, but which actually
Do you have beef with how he pieces?
so if
the
he had a
footage
regular
back
35
together?
millimeter camera, you have to do like click, reel, click, reel.
Well, I think it was a motion camera.
I thought he was a photographer.
But he's not piecing it back together at 24 frames. He's piecing it back together at like
12.
half or 12.
But even then,
But then at
like,
the end, he does
there's
get,
there's
like,
a
a
maximum
film.
of 35 stills in a 35 millimeter camera. So you have 35 stills. So if you capture the whole car accident, you're going like 12 frames a second.
Mm.
So like two shots every second. Then you're still using like your 35 up in the first like 5 seconds of the whole thing.
But Lithgow asks her for the tape at the end, and he pulls it out, and he goes, "Oh, 16."
16. I
Yeah.
know. It's there's some continuity issues and some logic issues.
I don't think it's a continuity error. What I think it is because of this guy's scam we're going to learn later in the movie.
I think he's just like weighing it.
He recorded it on film and then presented the individual images as photos.
It's like a book.
Do they say that explicitly?
Because I don't think
are we
I don't think
making that
because I
assumption?
don't think he's necessarily a very good photographer.
Right.
So he just got the whole thing on film so he could pick the individual parts out.
Because he has to be doing that because there's no way he's submitting the whole tape because
Yeah.
the gunshot's in the tape.
Yeah.
And that's where Travolta finds it, is in his original
And at the end of the movie,
better quality
we
film.
see him like put the film into into a thing, and it's just like
Yeah.
a steady like film shot. There's
Yeah.
no
This
individual.
movie's
photo.
so interestingly plotted because it's like very,
get a little closer.
it's very plotty,
Yeah,
but it's
it doesn't matter.
it's dreamlike.
Yeah.
It kind of like, it's like a situation where you don't need to know all the pieces. You're asking yourself like, all right, we're really with Lithgow, and not to jump ahead to it, but in terms of like talking about the plot of the movie, I'm like, it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
In that like all these things are happening simultaneously and the events of them don't really matter because they're just building.
Yeah, because we get to the
building.
events of how this person actually died and who put the assassination attempt. There's some leaps in logic of like how it happened, but you're right, it's not that important to the story. It's
because
just,
then we're introduced to Lithgow.
yeah,
the
Yeah,
tire.
right after that scene.
Yeah.
So, he sees in the news about the photographer who was there the night of the murder who's selling his photos. So he buys a magazine that's already like published the photos, and that's when he like starts cutting them out, putting them together, syncing them all up.
And he goes to
It's
the
a great
animation
sequence.
studio of the film company he works at. And it's
Yeah.
like using the animation photo press.
Yeah, yeah.
To literally make like an animated movie
Yeah.
with his sound clips of
Yep. And the best thing about that part is the only way they tell you that is just a sign on the door.
Yeah.
You don't be like, Jack, where are you going? I'm going to the animation studio to use like the photo press. Nope.
to
They
prove
just-
my conspiracy.
They just show the animation poster on the door. They show him using a tool which gets the thing done. You know what it does. Great filmmaking.
Yes.
Great visual storytelling that way. So
And he walks out with the tape, and he goes to like a film processing company, and he's like, "I need this as fast as possible." And the guy's like, "Oh, Jack, I'll do you a favor. You got to come back after midnight."
you're skipping the best part though. So after he takes the film,
the audition.
the audition, and so like literally he's like racing out and he's about to head to this photo processing thing, but this director who has like 3 girls sitting on his casting
His
couch.
producer from the beginning of the movie.
I say casting couch in like air quotes. And literally, as Jack is trying to run out, he has no time for anything. The producer guy is like, Jack, I need you to come in here. It's like, I don't have time. It's like, it's the audition. I need you to hear this. And Jack's like, oh. So he walks in. He's like, points at girl 3. Ah! Girl 2. Ah! Girl 1. Oh! John Travolta. Keep looking. And leaves.
It's such a funny joke.
It's such a good bit.
It's such a great bit. It's like continuing from that
Yeah.
initial scene, and it's amazing. I love it so much. And he delivers it beautifully,
Yes.
too.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So then the photo
Yeah, the
processing.
photo processing, and then we get the first Lithgow,
The first
where
go.
we're just on like a tire or on the trunk of a car, and it
We don't even
opens,
know it's Lithgow. I didn't know
Yeah.
it was him at that point.
And he opens the trunk, and there's 2 things in it. There's a tire, and there's a box that says magnetic tape eraser.
Yeah. Oh, duh, I missed that. Holy shit. That's so stupid.
And like he pulls the tire out, and he walks, and he like breaks into the police station essentially, and turns around. It's John Lithgow. Looking,
Fucking love John Lithgow.
he's so good. I have difficulty taking him seriously as like a serial killer. Or
Have you
like,
seen
murder.
Dexter?
No.
So he plays a serial killer in Dexter, and he's really good at it.
Because
too.
he looks like such a lovable, charming man.
But that's
and I know him in
why-
real life.
So
Lithgow, what?
I watched Dexter before I watched this movie.
Yeah.
And he plays a prominent serial killer who's been killing since the 70s, wink, wink, in Dexter in season 4. And like it goes through a whole thing. He's a family man in Dexter. He's like, you know, a nice little guy. He has little temper tantrums, which allude to his like psychopathic personality. And so after I watched that season and like Dexter, this was years ago. Then I watched this movie last night and I see John Lithgow. I'm like, that's the Trinity Killer from Dexter. So I love that.
Yes.
And I do agree with you saying he has like, have you seen The Crown?
It's just that I've not.
He
I
has
know
the
he plays
baby,
Churchill in it though.
He has the baby face Churchill face thing. And so it's hard to see him as a serial killer.
I
but-
think he's amazing in this movie.
Oh yeah.
It's just that prior to this, like my only Lithgow, I was like, what I associate him with is, oh yeah, he did. Yeah, we
What?
just learned that
Sorry to
John,
throw you in a tangent
John Lithgow
there.
voiced Yoda in the Empire Strikes Back radio drama.
Find it.
Am I about to order something live on there?
no, right. Not to cut you.
But like, I just associate him with like Terms of Endearment, where he's like this charming guy. The trailer for Daddy's Home 2. I've never seen Daddy's Home 2. Probably never will. But I just remember the trailer where he plays Will Ferrell's dad, and he's like a goofball in it. But it was
Should be
very
flipped.
exciting
So
to see him
obvious.
play such like a cold-blooded killer in this.
That's
and he does
our-
it so well.
He does it really, really well. And so, yeah, we see John Lithgow. Also, just want to make the observation that happens earlier in the movie after the motel night scene and the morning scene.
Okay.
So we skipped a little bit, but yeah, the police
Okay.
compound thing where he does patch the tire and all that stuff is in there.
I believe that the next scene after like after Travolta like dropping the film off, I think we go back to Lithgow again, and he's on the phone with his like handler,
Yeah.
and this is the only scene where we get
The guy where he's like, "You talking to me from a phone booth? You better." And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah."
this is the only scene in the movie where we get any context about why the assassination happened.
Right. Well,
And
we get 2, right? 2 phone booth conversations.
Yeah, but he's talking with the cops in the next one.
Where he's like doing like
Where he's like, I killed her.
He's like his cover. He's like really selling it. And the cops
Well,
is like no way
so
they
then there's
can hear
3
them.
because there's one in the initial where he's like, I'm calling from a private public telephone booth, sir. And then there's a second one where the handler is like, we told you not to kill him. It's like, if you remember on the June
He
conference
called
meeting.
him to tell him to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I suggested this plan. It's like, and we rejected it. It's like, well, I had different plans.
Yeah.
They basically hired like the worst hitman.
Yeah.
Who's like
He does his own
low-key
thing.
a serial killer and they don't know he is.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of like
that's a great way to say it.
the
He's a
format.
hitman who is also a psychopathic serial
They
killer.
like hired him to essentially get McRyan in the race one way or the other,
I imagine
but not to kill him.
I imagine the profession of being a hitman probably attracts a lot of psychopathic serial
Yeah.
killers, but it's a small pool of, good intentioned hitmen.
Yeah.
Because even his plan is like, I killed the wrong lady. I'm just gonna kill a bunch of ladies. I'm just gonna kill a bunch of ladies, make it look like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, and then he's just like, oh, fine, I
Theory.
guess you can do that, sure.
Theory.
But
He knew it wasn't Sally. He knew each of those women wasn't Sally, so
Most-
he just killed her.
course, yeah, no.
Yeah, he's just like,
And
I want to
I-
kill blonde women.
I feel like the first lady.
the first lady
Yeah, but
conceivable.
that's where my theory comes in.
Sure.
The movie intends us to think he was trying to kill Sally and kill the wrong woman. I don't think
He
it
turns
was.
her over though.
I think it's
He
like,
turns her over and is like, oh.
wrong woman. Stab!
yeah. But
Not just stab, Liberty Bell on her chest.
Yep.
I love Philly. The thing I just love about this sequence where he's on the phone with his like handler is that the movie does not have any interest in diving into this like conspiracy. It has no interest in why was this guy killed, who ordered the hit, did did his competition hire it, or was it like the party or whatever. The movie's just like, that's not what's important. What's important is the story of these 2 characters. And this greater conspiracy is so much bigger than them. It's so
Yeah.
much more important to them. They're just like these little,
Tiny pieces.
they're these little things that are just
Yeah.
fighting against this foot that's going to step on
They're
them.
just doomed.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
they're doomed from the start.
Which is why the end of the movie is actually good.
Yeah, this thing is
As
just
opposed to the public perception when it first came out. A lot of people did not like the ending. But
it's like any conspiracy, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but any conspiracy where the idea is this thing is so much bigger and it's a world that's hidden from us.
sidebar, do any of you believe in one conspiracy theory?
More than one. What was that?
What's yours, Mark? While you think about it, Jeff,
There's
what's your,
like certain conspiracy theories where I'm like, the truth is cooler than that.
I definitely think
Yeah.
Like the moon landing. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's
there's
So
a
making the
lame.
moon landing
there's
is
a
way lamer than
16-minute
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
video debunking why the whole moon landing could have been fake because we didn't have the technology to film a fake moon landing.
Yeah.
But we had the technology to go to the moon.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Basically, like duct tape on a rocket is cooler than a warehouse and like
Yeah.
some dirt. Like, what are you
yeah.
talking about?
well, Jeffrey Epstein definitely didn't kill himself.
Sure,
That's
yeah,
mine.
no, yeah, 100%.
Jeff, what's yours?
I don't really have. I mean, I just love conspiracies. I just don't believe. I just think they're fun.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's got to be one though that
Like
you know,
JFK, maybe like an extreme movie with very loose factual grounding. Great movie. I love watching and being like, oh, did these guys kill did John Candy murder him?
I feel like
I love watching that
John
movie.
Candy could have murdered anybody.
I love watching that movie and doing that. And then at the end, I'm like, that doesn't really make much sense, but I love it.
Just remembering the end of The Rock when Nicolas Cage with his newlywed wife runs out of a church and you have a little USB thing. And this right before when it cuts to credits, Nicolas Cage is like, honey, do you want to know who killed
Yeah.
JFK? Cut to black credits.
Yeah.
That's the end of The Rock. But we're not talking about The Rock right now.
I feel like I'm sounding like such a dumb, like bad history person here. The sinking of the Lusitania
Yeah,
in World War One, that's considered that's conspiracy theory.
There is
The sinking of that to draw the U.S.
that
into
the
the World War
U.S.
One.
sank it.
Yeah, there's the conspiracy that the U.S. sank their own ship.
Yeah.
So that we could go into the war.
Yeah.
That's conspiracy
Yeah.
theory.
I don't think we had U-boats though.
Oh,
I don't know what we had.
yeah.
Anyway, this is not World War One cast.
We're talking about
So-
conspiracy
I'm
theories,
so
which
surprised you
relates
didn't try
to
and pitch us in a World War One cast right
Blowout.
there.
No, I could have. I really could have.
You held
we are
yourself back.
1 hour and 20 minutes into this podcast.
Oh yeah, we're like 30 minutes into the
And
movie.
We haven't
We're-
even broken out of the first act. All right.
So
This is going to be our longest
First act
episode.
of the
yeah.
show.
What was
not
the last? What were we just talking?
We were talking about Lithgow and
we're-
like the conspiracy
Okay,
theory.
So yeah,
They finally get coffee. Because
They do get
he
coffee.
calls her
They
after
get
the
cold feet.
photo thing, and she's like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "I'm on a train." It's like, "Oh, are you leaving town?" It's like, "Well, stay here for a minute. I'll meet you at the station." He meets her at the station. They get coffee.
Yeah. And this is where he does his whole he gives his
bit.
whole exposition bit.
Yeah.
And this movie, and this is just more of like a Travolta filmography thing, is that De Palma and him were gonna do Prince of the City, the Sidney Lumet movie.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to make that movie, and then it fell off. And that scene is like a scene. I haven't seen Prince of the City, so I shouldn't even say it's directly lifted. But I've read that it's heavily lifted from that as a scene from that script that they were gonna shoot. Of their version, and then they went and did Blowout instead. Yeah, so that's kind of what that scene is, but it also gives so much of his character and of his kind of like his truth seeking. I am the cop of the cops.
Yeah,
and now I'm a sound recorder. Kind of like fun dynamic.
Yeah, but so to fill in the audience of Jack Terry's backstory.
No. We got to do the scene before that first.
What's the scene before that?
What's the scene before that?
He goes back to the film place processing. He gets the movie. He watches it and sees that the gunshot and his sounds sync up perfectly. Yeah. And he's like,
he makes a copy.
And he makes a copy, so he has a movie that shows this. He says two things he needs though. He needs to give this to the police, and he needs to get a copy of the original.
He needs
film.
the original tape.
First thing he does
is this before the calling to get coffee?
Yes. Well, it's around the same time.
Because after he comes back from the shop, after he comes back from that lunch with her, everything's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he goes to the cop, or the police station. He's like, I have the film right here. And they're like, we don't want your conspiracy theories anymore. You put a lot of good guys away.
Well, I love that bit because it makes sense why the cops are extra difficult to Jack. Because it's like, oh, it makes sense because he was a knock.
But right there, we're like, why are these people being such dicks to Travolta?
And then he's like, fine, I'm taking it. And they're like, oh, not so fast.
We're like, is this just a fuck the police movie or something? But then the next scene is when they're having coffee and he explains how he got into sound.
I don't think it is, Jeff. Just because the way I wrote it down.
Was it reversed?
I think it's reversed.
Okay.
Because right after he calls and says, I'll meet you at the train station, they go to the train station and then it's a coffee scene.
Yeah.
Figure out the structure. I'm going to pee. Real quick.
Okay. Mark is getting up to go pee.
Should we pause?
No, we can just keep going. So
Okay.
I do want to talk about the backstory because I think it's important for our audience who haven't seen the film to know the backstory. So Jack and Sally are getting coffee and they're talking about their professions, like her being in makeup and how passionate she is about it. And then she asks him about his backstory and like, how'd you get into sound? And he talks about, well, I used to fix radios in high school. I was kind of a gear head in like college. I used to make my own like radio, all that stuff. And then he became like he wasn't a police officer, but he was like an engineer, sound technician for police who was like internal affairs, meaning they investigated corrupt cops. So he would put on these a wire, meaning like a wireless lavalier that would transmit to a follow car on undercover cops. So he does this and he's going through like his last undercover experience where they're investigating this corrupt captain. So he puts on this lavalier pack. He tapes it to his side.
Yeah.
And then they like tape the mic to like his diaphragm and his chest, and then they go through with the undercover investigation.
And Travolta's narrating this whole time, and he's just like, the thing I didn't count on was he would get nervous and sweaty and overheat his battery pack.
Yeah, so like all the liquid sweat got into like the wire,
the recording device,
and that will cause it to short out and would burn
burning
a
the man
hole
alive
in his side, and so he was like in pain in
like
the car.
Maybe the sweatiest image I've ever seen in my life. Where like it's like these two mobsters in a car. Like a real Don type of guy,
short undercover cop,
and then in the middle, there's a short undercover cop,
clearly in pain,
sweating profusely. He's like, he looks like Danny Yalo and Do the Right Thing. He's just covered in sweat.
So, and then that would be when the undercover cop is like, pull over, I gotta go pee.
Yeah,
and he runs up and he's like trying to get like his lavalier off. Jack Terry and like the cop that's driving the car, they're like, oh, like pull over, and then they see like the mob boss walk into the same bathroom and then like walk out in a rush. So Jack Terry like rushes into the bathroom, and that's when he sees the undercover cop
hung up by the wire.
lavalier. And it's like, I don't know if lavaliers have that much strength built into them. Like if you pull on a lavalier wire, it will break eventually. But
yeah, he's literally hung by the wire.
by his own device.
Yes.
I'm back.
Yes, Mark is
Mark is back from his
It's
pee.
very affecting. His like hanging on. He's like
Yeah.
it's like an inch above the ground.
Yeah.
His foot is just like barely touching it. It's so like bone chilling. It's like that close.
And that's what drives Travolta, is that he was a guy who worked undercover cops, like within the department, sold out a bunch of cops in just the pursuit of truth, and he got that guy killed doing it. So he feels like he has like this moral obligation now to fight for truth.
Yeah.
He tried to escape from it by going into the film industry and ended up just discovering his need to like put truth into film.
Yeah.
And that's what's really driving him now.
yeah.
So it's during this conversation when Jack is telling Sally to stick around, like, just, we need you around because I need your help. You're the only one that was there. And that's when, after that scene, Sally's walking around and I wrote, because this is before, I knew it was John Lithgow, but like, it doesn't reveal it's John Lithgow until the first killing scene when we see his face.
No, we see him in the phone booth.
All right. Okay, because I wrote down John motherfucking Lithgow in all
I think
caps.
you're just excited for him in this.
I was so excited. When I saw him in the credits, I'm like, please tell me he's a hitman. And he was. And I was so happy. So then this is John Lithgow comes back and he's following Sally, or so he thinks is Sally.
And he's following her through the Reading Terminal Market in Philly.
And there's lots of diopter shots.
It is the coolest place in the world.
Yeah.
It's like a permanent farmer's market in the middle of the city, but with like only...
It's like a megaplex mall, it feels like.
Yeah, it's like...
Jeffrey from Philly.
I am from Philly. They go there in National Treasure as well.
Oh,
fact.
yeah.
It's where Abigail hides when she's being chased by like the thugs, and the one woman's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm hiding from my ex-husband." She's like, "Honey, stay as long as you like."
It's
It's that same little
dollar trick in the water
market.
bottle.
Yeah.
That same little because that's like a fish market thing, right? And she hides behind that same booth, which is the same booth John Lithgow takes like the pick out of the like ice tray or whatever. And there's a diopter shot of him grabbing that, and
This is pretty much what it's like.
Yeah.
I'm showing pictures. Look up, if you're at home right now, look up Reading Terminal Market, and unless you're driving, in which case wait until you get home. Look up
Reading Terminal spelled like reading.
Yeah, like reading. It's like just the coolest place in the world.
How often do tourists call it Reading Terminal, Jeff?
I don't know, because they all are killed before they say that. No.
So John Lithgow follows.
He follows her through that.
Oh, his name is Burke, by the way.
And this is a great sequence that, you know, we've talked so much hype about this movie. We haven't talked about how good the cinematography is in this movie.
Yeah. Well, we talk a lot about the diopter shots.
We talk about but like the colors in this movie.
It's so striking.
I think it reaches the peak in the first killing scene when like he grabs her and they fall down this dirt pit and it's just this red light that's just like pouring all over them.
And even when they're walking through the terminal market, like there's so many neon signs and like harsh lights. And De Palma and how do you pronounce his last name? You just did it.
Vilmos Gigamon.
Yes.
Gigamon.
I'm gonna let Mark just say the name every time.
You guys talk about cinematography. I gotta pee.
Oh my god. This is...
Here's my thing about...
We are an hour and 30 minutes in.
Hell yeah.
Here's my thing about...
This is gonna be 2.5 hours. Let's just be real.
What's the Wi-Fi to this place? Do you know? Or I'm just gonna look it up on my phone. Can you look up the aspect ratio of this movie is? I think it's 2:3:5.
Yeah.
It's anamorphic. But the use of it is probably... Aesthetically, that's like not my favorite. I don't love 2:3:5, but I think nobody does it better than De Palma.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the way he frames his shots. His shots are so
239.
2:3:9. Sure, so it's even wider. Yeah, so it's but it's. I mean, and he can do shots like he does, like in The Chase, where it's just like half close up, half wide shot of her on the elevator, and you're just like, it's the best. I mean, it's so.
And it's all cinematography and choices in terms of building tension. Mm-hmm. Like everything is all about the tension, and the sequence is all tension of just you're literally watching a girl walking, but
it's so emotional.
Yeah,
it's so terrifying,
and you just know she's gonna die.
Yeah,
and you think it's Nancy Allen the whole time until the end.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like, you know that you're not getting like a close up of her, so
Yeah.
you know there's not going to be some switch up. You know, I think like to an extent because they're not giving her face.
But the whole time you're like, is it or isn't it?
Yeah, because you've seen her in the coat. And
Yeah.
it's so similar.
And you're just seeing them get closer and
Yeah.
closer together, and you're
Yeah.
like, when's this gonna finally just happen?
Yeah,
And then it happens on a bridge. And he jumps at her,
yeah.
and they tussle down a dirt hill.
Into a quarry.
Yeah, into a I don't even know where this is.
I guess.
Into he's back. They're in a quarry. And,
Would you call that a quarry? Yeah.
Quarry?
It's a quarry.
It's a
yeah,
quarry.
we're still on the murder scene.
Still a murder
So they
scene.
get into the quarry, and he strangles her.
This is going well, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And then he turns the body over, and he looks, and it's not Nancy Allen. It's some poor innocent girl.
Yeah.
And John Lithgow's like, "Fuck, I got the wrong."
And honestly, I mean, like, this
honest
movie's
mistake.
not doing too many favors by its ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and
not a
that's
lot.
just it sucks. That like every woman in this is murdered or
yeah.
Or a prostitute.
or a prostitute, or auditioning to be a woman who
screams
shirtless
in a
and
movie.
murdered in a shower.
Needless to say, this does not pass the
Bechdel test.
Bechdel test.
Yes.
It doesn't. Yeah. Half a Bechdel test. I did. It's not even.
Yeah.
There's not even two women who talk to each other.
Yeah.
Let alone about anything of substance.
And that's when he stabs her multiple times.
Yes. He
With the-
doesn't stab her multiple times. He stabs her and makes the shape of the Liberty Bell on her stomach.
Because
Which is revealed later. Yeah.
while being a professional hitman, John Lithgow is also a psychopath. You say artist.
But no, I remember he's just like, he's holding the
Jesus
knife up and he's
fuck.
like, shit, what am I going to put? And then he looks and he sees the Liberty Bell on like a poster, and he's like,
But also, he's
you only
like,
live once.
he's got these like serial killer motivations where his motivations feel like, I found this cool fucking watch that he can pull he can pull some kind of wire, some straight metal wire out of it and just fucking hang people. And he's like, you're just like,
You go, John.
He's running wild.
So after this scene, Sally visits Manny, the photographer.
Yeah, she goes to see Manny. And I love the opening of the scene before she goes into Manny's apartment.
When Manny's by himself.
Manny the photographer, because he's expecting her to come by, and he's like doing a whole rehearsal about what he's gonna say to her, and
Right.
he's gonna talk with her, and he's like, "Hey Sal, how you doing? Just doing great," and yada yada yada.
Want a drink? Want some scotch?
But there's such a like undercurrent of this movie about just like rehearsals and like staging things.
Yeah.
And I love that even he's rehearsing who he's gonna be when she walks in the room. And then she comes in and he says exactly what he was rehearsing. It's such a cool sequence. But then she's asking him for the film because she's trying to get it for Jack.
Yeah.
These sequences are interesting because these are kind of the flattest sequences.
Yeah.
And they're kind of the only time he really uses like proper like tracking two shots in his little like dingy room.
Yeah, they're kind of like the only business scenes.
It's kind of and
It's kinda like we gotta
this
just-
and the other one feel like business.
Yeah.
De Palma's like not too interested in Manny beyond his like plot purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There's actually two of these scenes too.
Yeah.
Because the first time she's with him and then she's like, I was in the car.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, accidents happen, you know?
oh, we didn't even talk about his motivation was revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manny, the photographer, it turns out that the reason Sally was in the car with McRyan was it was a sting operation.
Yeah, they were running
Yeah.
their little scheme that
They were
They run a
gonna
scheme where
blackmail him.
she pretends to sleep with wealthy men.
and he was
Or she
hired
sleeps
by
with wealthy
whoever
men.
this guy was.
And then he'll run in and take photos and blackmail them.
Yeah. That's
And
their
like
whole
they did it
scam.
as like a small scheme together, and they were
Yeah.
hired to do it to McRyan for $6,000. Though he only told her $3,000.
Yeah, that photo is funny because he is like, what?
Yeah.
And she's just like, what? She's
Yeah.
just like, all right.
She's
he's
like,
here
yeah, this
again."
shit again.
Yeah. And that's when afterwards, I think we may have already talked about it, but then it cuts back to Travolta in his studio syncing up the sound with
Yeah.
the footage or the copies of the footage that he has.
Yeah.
And he's syncing it up and he sees a gunshot and all that stuff. And then we go to the police station. I'm gonna say we skipped around a little bit.
Yeah.
So
But it's like, that's what I was thinking about this movie is it's like, it's so plotty.
yeah.
But like,
Any of these scenes work in any like you could put them in any order.
you could kind of arrange them in any order. And it feels so like, I was so just kind of like, I don't know, that it like, I'm really bad at that. No,
That's
sorry.
my job.
The movie, like, it just kind of like takes over where you're not even processing some of them because the information isn't like, it's not.
There were a few times like plotting moments where I'm just like not writing notes. I'm like, okay, this is business.
Yeah.
Like, gotta get
De Palma knows when he has to give you some business.
Yeah.
So we can get back to like this kind of flow of the movie.
Yeah. And I think the police station is definitely one of them when he's having that argument with the cops and then he like tries to take the footage away and they're like, no, that's evidence. So what I love about that scene in particular when he's talking to the cops is he's like, I need the original footage. It's like, can you find me like the photographer? It's like, we don't know where he is. And then John Travolta goes find him. He has a fucking store. Like, he just goes to his store. Like the cops didn't know that this asshole like had his own store.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, well, Jack found him really quickly.
Yeah.
And that's where like there's a security guard and he's like, I need the footage, or I'm looking for this guy. I have an appointment. He's like, oh, I bet you were trying to get the footage.
Yeah.
So I don't know, more business stuff. But so then Lithgow who's working on the tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
This is when Lithgow like goes in. Well, we don't see him go in.
We don't see him go in. John Travolta just gets a call from the cop and he's like, the whole tape is empty. What are you trying to pull on us?
Yep.
And then Travolta runs back to his office and it's been ransacked and all of his tapes are empty.
That amazing shot.
Yeah, it's like a 360 spin, but just
Yeah.
keeps
He's just,
happening.
and the white noise is just like creeping.
And
in
Travolta's
on
just
you.
throwing all
He's
these
just-
tapes on to try and
beautiful.
get
And
a
it's
sound
all
to
just blank.
play. And they're all blank.
Yeah.
Except for you think you hear one where it's a phone. And you think like, oh, one of them's working. It's a phone sound. Mm-hmm. But then his assistant comes in the room and he's like, are you going to answer your phone or no?
Yeah.
Like at first I was
Beautiful.
like, because you know he's tucked it up in the roof. You're like, you're not worried about the lost evidence. You know you have the spare, but it's like his life's
Yeah, his life's work is
his
gone.
life's work has just been to
Like his commitment to the truth in this conspiracy has destroyed his life's work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when the assistant walks in. He's like, was somebody in here today? It's like, yeah, somebody like walked in. It's like, why did you let
Why are you the world's worst assistant?
It's like, I have valuable stuff in here. I work for very high value clients. And like Bloody Beach 1 and all that stuff. Those are the name of the movies that Travolta works on.
Banister of
Bloody
Blood or
Beach
something.
Like Bloody Beach 1, Bloody Beach 2, the Bloody something. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Bordello of blood. He did.
Yeah.
Like,
So then Travolta then gets visited by a reporter who they're talking about like giving over the tapes and all that stuff, and he still needs the footage. Jack talks to Sally about it. Sally, who kind of reveals her job to Travolta as being the person who blackmails these folks, but he doesn't seem to mind or care that much. So that's when Sally goes to visit Manny a second time.
Yes.
And yeah.
And she at this point she's fully caught up in Travolta's like quest for the truth.
Yeah.
And to expose this conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because she feels guilty about because she thinks she's part of the reason that McRyan died.
Right.
She's like, our scheme was what led to his death.
And also she was a disposable factor.
Yeah,
That
and she's
it's
like, they didn't care about me.
If she drowned in the car with him, it would have been fine.
So she wants truth and revenge at the same time.
Yeah.
And Manny's not going to give her the tape. Instead, he tries to like force himself on her.
yeah.
Tries-
Manny's weird in that scene too because Manny's like, we're not complicit. We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And she's like, fine, cool. I'm gonna go. Well, we did something. And they're gonna come after
And
us.
I can't remember what the line is, but Travolta says like, we're like fish to them or something like that. And she says that to Manny. And Manny's like, wouldn't you swallow a box of animal crackers on the way in?
So she smashes his head with
a beer
with a beer bottle and
One
takes
quick
the
bunk.
original film. Yeah.
He
and leave.
collapses.
So Jack has the footage, and his plan is to go to the press, and he gets off the phone with the reporter, and at
Donahue.
the same time,
Let's go.
Burke
Yeah.
has like his phone tapped or whatever.
He breaks into his basement.
Yeah,
Like,
taps his phone. And that's when Burke, who impersonates the reporter, calls Sally and is like, can you bring the original tape? I want to meet you at this place.
Yeah, I want to meet you at Penn's Landing during the fireworks show.
And then she tells
Oh,
Travolta.
no, it's at the train station.
Yeah, it's the train station. So then Sally then tells Travolta, it's like, oh, Donahue called me. It's like, I've been waiting on Donahue to call me all day. And it's like, well, he's probably have been calling you. It's like, my phone hasn't been ringing.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of businessy. But at any rate, so she's going to
So he's like,
meet
well,
up with this reporter.
He's like, I don't think this is trustworthy. I'm going to wire you when you
Yeah.
meet the reporter.
Puts
And
a
I'm going to
wire.
listen in the whole time.
yeah,
And so he does.
I love it.
And he's sitting outside of this movie theater. Or not this movie theater.
The station.
Outside of this train station.
Yeah.
And Sally's in there. and she finally comes across Burke.
Well, you missed the whole bit where Burke kills a prostitute.
Oh yeah, he just like
For funsies.
He's hanging out and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill a woman to get my
That's
kicks on.
before they meet up.
That's before they meet up because he's like messing with his wash thing, and there's this whole conversation with the sailor and this prostitute talking.
Yeah.
They go to a phone booth. Bert goes in a phone booth, watches like a creeper. The sailor is like, not so fast, not so fast, and then he like leaves the phone
he
booth, tosses
throws
her
a
a 10.
$10.
It's like, where's my 30? It's like, you missed your chance, honey. So then she is like just in this phone booth, and then Burke like taps on the glass,
Yeah.
John Lithgow, and is like doing these like blowjob motions, like asking because he puts
Yeah.
a 50 on,
Yeah.
and she's like, "The fuck you, man!" And then she walks out, goes to the bathroom.
She's not fuck you. She's like, I'll be back in 5
Yeah, she's
minutes.
5
You-
minutes.
she's like,
I
I'll be
missed
back in
that.
5
It
minutes.
was like-
You wait right
maybe it's
there.
'cause, like, the
and then
way
she
she-
goes and she brushes her teeth.
Yeah,
because she's gonna go back.
So she's in the bathroom, and then it cuts to this like low angle facing up from the bathroom
And
stall.
Lithgow's just
You
like
see
hanging
Lithgow
over the stall.
with his like watch wire, and like she like moves around and thinks she hears something,
and
and
he's
then
just that tall. He's not even on his tippy toes.
Lithgow actually is pretty tall.
Oh, yeah, 100%
yeah, he's actually
though.
really
Yeah, that's
tall,
why.
and so
If this wasn't such a horrifying scene about like sexually motivated murder, it would
Yeah.
almost be a comedy routine. How much he's
Yeah.
like, he's hanging over the stall with the wire, and she like
She
turns
looks,
around, he
and
like stands back
And
up.
he's
stands
just
back.
waiting for her to drop her toothbrush.
Yes,
so then eventually he finds an opening and he strangles her,
yes,
and then we cut to him dropping off Sally at the station.
yes. Travolta drops Sally off, and he's like, "I want to be listening the whole time. You're wired."
Yeah.
And so she goes in, and it takes a little bit before she finds Lithgow.
I love this bit where she's like, "Hey Jack, if you're listening, like we should blah 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 blah, like
Yeah.
talk about this stuff," because that happens to me as a sound guy on film sets where like actors would be like, "Hey sound guy, so I think I'm gonna start yelling at this scene. You may want to like put the gain down a little bit." I love it. I'm just like, "Thank you" to the talent. So I just love that little bit there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then that's when she's in the station, takes her a little while, then Burke comes up.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, hi, Sally." He puts on an accent.
Yeah, and Travolta is immediately like,
That's not
"This
Donahue.
ain't Donahue."
This ain't Donahue. So it's like, let's go this way. And
So he runs in after her,
yeah.
but by that point he doesn't know where she is, and he can't communicate with her.
Yeah. Only
So
he has
just
to
has
go by.
He has to go by what she's saying.
Yeah.
And so he has to just get lucky where she's like, "Oh, we're going downstairs," or "Hey, look, a train," or
And he sees the station, starts running down the train
He's
station
like running
tunnel.
down. He like jumps over an entry point, and the guy's like, "Hey, you need to pay your ticket." And Joel's running. He's running.
And then he's in like the opening like hallway areas.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what train she's on. And so she says something like, "This is like a dump." And it's like, yeah, it's like a lot of bad things happen on the red line.
Yeah.
Then he sees the red line and starts running down that way.
And Burke is leading her down this like really slummy one. He's ready to strangle her.
This-
and then
yeah.
a cleaning dude comes out. He
yeah,
pulls
this
the
is
wire
like
back.
And she's just like, this fucking guy.
I love this bit so much because like she's talking about like also dangerous things happen here. Like people,
Yeah.
have you heard that thing about the killer who like lures his victims down here? I'm like, Nancy, what are you doing? This is like my big bit with Nancy because like,
Well, as far as she's concerned, this guy's just a reporter.
yeah, but it's like the
And John Lithgow has
dialogue.
such a lovable face.
Are you more? Are you interested more with her character, not her performance?
That's the thing. It's
Sure.
like her, like the way it's written is
Her
it's so like
character is
over the
pretty-
top. Like, you know, it's like I imagine like because Brian De Palma wrote
Yeah,
this.
he did.
too. So imagine like Brian De Palma sitting at his desk writing this. It's like, how can I make this like situational irony pop here? It's like, oh, killers lead their victims down here. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, yeah, I get it. It's like she's totally clueless to him being a
She's just
serial
like,
killer.
Yeah, this is a dangerous place, isn't it?
And it's like some people lead their victims all the way down to that area where we're walking towards right now.
And then look
It's
out.
that
then
she's
the
like,
hose guy.
she's like, John Lithgow, we're fully in the tunnel now. We're not on the platform anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. She actually just refers to him as John Lithgow.
Yeah.
She's like, John Lithgow, why are we here?
Yeah.
And then John Lithgow's just like, yeah, let's get on this train that's coming up. Let's just do that.
And then so
They get on
John
the train.
Travolta's like running through.
It's such a
and
good
it's-
shot. You're inside the train, and John Lithgow and Nancy Allen are just talking, and in the back you just see Travolta running and waving his arms and screaming.
Sally, get off the train!
And then this scene is amazing.
The craziest fucking car
This is the
chase.
craziest fucking scene.
Oh yeah, the car chase.
Where Travolta's just like, all right, I only got one thing I can do now. I gotta beat him to the next station. So he runs up.
During a parade.
So he runs up to his car and he like just zips it through.
Yep.
He comes across a parade. There's a bunch of cops blocking it. He's like, tough. She's gonna die if I don't do this.
He goes up these steps. Like, thank God he drives like a fucking, what is it, like
He
a
drives
Jeep?
a Jeep, like up
Yeah.
a flight of steps through the Philadelphia like City Hall. Like, he's driving in.
Yep.
He's driving in City Hall, not outside of it or around it.
Beautiful helicopter
in
shots.
City
The
Hall.
helicopter shots.
And then he plows past City Hall into the middle of the parade. People are like jumping and leaping out of the way.
He's like going up on the sidewalk.
He's
and
going up on
then-
the sidewalk.
Travolta's performance is so calculated.
Yeah.
He's so
Oh,
like,
he's
I
like-
know exactly what I'm doing. And then the car is just like,
Bitch!
is not moving at all. It's just going straight.
Yes.
And people are just moving out of the
Yeah.
way. But Travolta's just like, yes.
He's like, they'll move. I believe it.
And that's when...
And then he just drives it into a building.
He drives into a
And he
building.
drives into a building and it gets
And-
knocked unconscious.
And his head flies forward and there's blood coming out. I thought he had died when, like, I mean, I was like,
kinda did
I was like,
too.
did he just die?
Great decision if he did. That would have been amazing.
That would have been great.
It's like, he just died.
But no,
He didn't die.
He's unconscious.
And we go from day to night. And that's when my thought, it's like, he's been unconscious for a long enough period of time. Surely Sally's dead.
Yeah. But we cut
She's
to
not.
Sally and John Lithgow, and they're just hanging out at Penn's Lane and watching these fireworks. And he's like, yeah, it's lovely fireworks. Do you have the tapes? I'm going to put them on the air.
And she's like telling him all about like the technical specs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like Jack told me to tell you it's like 16 millimeter. It's like, yep, it looks like 16, all right.
And he pulls it
then-
out and he rips it and he wraps it around the thing and he throws it in the
she's
river.
just
And that's when I
hey,
get my
don't think
favorite
that's how
line.
Okay, you go.
My favorite line from that Sally says is like, she's just like very like casually mad. Not like over.
Yeah.
She's not freaking out. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? That's our tape. No, she's like, hey, Jack's gonna kill you. Metaphorical.
And then she realizes what happened. And then we come back to an ambulance.
yeah.
Where Travolta is passed out.
Yeah.
I like that this guy broke through police barriers, drove through City Hall, endangered hundreds of pedestrians, and crashed into a building and destroyed property. And they just have him in an ambulance.
He's just in an ambulance.
And he's not handcuffed.
He's not handcuffed. He's just, and then he gets up and he runs out.
And he still has his earpiece on him. He just throws it in
And he still has the
it's still
earpiece on.
on.
It's still working.
Yeah.
It's still transmitting all that
And so
shit.
he's running, and this is actually my favorite scene in this movie.
like, what's
I mean,
the
there's
range
this-
on those transmitters? Because they're pretty far apart.
This and now we're getting into it. This last like 15 minutes
Transcendent.
is, and the movie just goes quiet because the movie has been all business and
Yeah.
talkie into this scene, into that room. And the business is good. I love
Yeah.
all the business. I don't think there's like a wasted moment
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
But then the movie just kind of like turns everything off, turns Pino's score up.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's just fireworks going off.
He's running through a
Travolta running through a
parade.
crowd.
Yeah. And she is being like lured somewhere. Like, I will say one thing. Burke had a few opportunities to kill her and then just chose like, no, I'm going to drag her up the stairs.
But he's
up
so theatrical. And you
Yeah,
know
that's
when he's in
true.
the bathroom with her and he's like, no, it's got to be this way. He's such a...
He's an
It's-
artist, and
Yeah.
it goes back to like
I never thought of it that way.
it goes back
That
to
is
like
true.
it goes
It's
back to like
his- yeah.
every character in this movie
Or thinking
is
of himself as an
is
artist.
trying to like present a version of themselves and like be an artist. Like even Manny at that one point is rehearsing how he's going to present himself when she comes in.
Yeah.
Burke is such like a theatrical. Everyone in this movie is so performative
Yeah.
that Burke is like, no, I need to kill her in front of the giant American flag as the fireworks are going off. And so he instead of just stabbing her and throwing her in the river, which would have been easy right there. He could have done it, no one noticed. He drags her up to like this huge American flag above all the crowd.
Presumably, like, with many opportunities, he could have been spotted.
Yeah. Travolta's running through and he just sees Nancy. Nancy locks eyes with him and she like thrusts herself over a fence and she's like, Jack! And she's waving her arms and it's just Karen Allen's upper
that's-
body with the stars and stripes behind her and
Nancy
massive. Nancy Allen.
Yeah, you said Karen Allen.
Indiana Jones, good movie. Huge, like stars and stripes behind her, and it's like, oh, this is some good shit right here.
Yeah.
She's juxtaposed with the American flag, like this is the freedom of this country from this movie. Is like it's all just conspiracy and murder and all that.
Yeah.
it's like not even the main idea of the movie, but De Palma at the end is just like, I'm gonna throw a little conspiracy business in there as a treat.
So Jack's in pursuit,
And Jack's in pursuit, and he's running up.
and he hears everything going on.
And he hears her scream, and no, the music just cuts out
Yeah.
during her scream. It's just ah.
That's where she hears Jack when
Yeah.
when she screams
Yeah.
Jack.
She
And he
screams
hears
Jack.
it here and he hears it there.
Yeah, and she goes, and then she just screams.
Yeah.
And then Lithgow grabs her and he's strangling her.
Yeah.
Travolta's running up the steps. And finally, Lithgow pulls a knife up to, like, I guess, carve the Liberty Bell into her.
Yeah.
Because he's doing that now.
Yeah.
But Travolta manages to get up behind him and stab Lithgow multiple times.
With his own
like,
knife.
Yeah. And Lithgow dies.
And he falls.
But then also,
revealing.
Nancy Allen is also dead.
Yeah. Strangled.
And she has, like, strangle marks. And then Travolta just grabs her body and holds
We're
it
going
up.
to talk about 360.
And we're spinning around them.
Beautiful 360.
With fireworks going
Low
off
angle,
and, like,
facing up so you see
Like
the sky.
reds and blues blasting on them, this huge flag, fireworks. Oh my god!
Most beautiful shot in the movie, hands
Oh
down.
my
Is this
god!
It's so beautiful.
Do you either of you know if this was all in camera? My guess is it is.
It
fireworks
has to
bit,
be.
I feel like the pan.
Could that have been green screen? Like they shot the fireworks separate and then they just green screen, but like
for De Palma, I could just see them
actually
setting off
do
the
it.
fireworks.
Yeah.
They
'Cause
feel
it
like
is
they're
a-
moving at different speeds, which is one of the most affecting things about the
Yeah.
image. I could be wrong. I could just watch it now, but like,
But the 360 low angle facing up at the sky
Yeah.
fireworks scene.
Ooh,
I just cried.
We got
I don't know
cinematographer
why. I
buddies
was just-
watching this.
it's so emotional and so magic.
If we got like
That's what movies are all about.
yeah, folks who are interested in cinematography and lighting and all that stuff, just watch the movie for just that shot.
Yeah,
It is so
You could just watch that shot and just be like, yeah, I got it.
I mean, also
That's the
like
movie. That's the movie. That's the whole movie's in that shot.
top to
It
bottom,
is.
this movie looks great though.
Yeah, this whole movie's great.
it
Top to
does look
bottom.
really good.
Top to bottom.
So yeah, so she's dead.
She's dead. We now fade out. We fade back on Travolta sitting in the snow
On a park bench.
on a park bench.
Listening.
It has presumably been some time.
And he's still listening to that conversation they had.
That he had because he
When she
can't
was
let
like-
her go. He
Yeah.
feels like just as he failed that undercover cop,
Yeah.
he failed McRyan. He failed her.
Yeah.
It's a conversation we've heard before.
Yeah.
Like, I think
it's like
yeah.
when she talks to the mic to Jack.
Oh, it's when he says
she's
that.
like, "So
Yeah.
Jack, like when are we going to do this or whatever
Yeah.
afterwards?" And then so we get that in the park bench scene. And then we go to the film studio again, the little theater thing
Yeah.
where they're going through screams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the start with the movie screen substitutes with all the other actresses or whatever, but then it like intercuts and then overlaps into her screams.
He's
when-
using her scream, isn't it, in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's using.
Oh,
her
I
scream.
didn't know he was using
No,
her
he
scream.
used her scream that he recorded
Oh, that's fucked up.
in the movie.
That's
That's a bit fucked up.
You didn't put that together?
No, I didn't. I thought
No.
it was just a scream, and he was associating it with her scream.
no, bro.
Because he failed to make this thing that was able to like create change and expose this conspiracy, and so the only like way he can keep her memory and the only like truth he can find is bringing out her real scream and putting it in this shitty horror movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot to take in.
And that even
And
just
it-
before that, like between the scene and when he's on the bench in the snow and into the theater room, you have like 15 seconds of just like, and the conspiracies are still there.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. The election will go
Yeah.
on however it was. This shit's just going to
Yeah.
repeat itself. This is just...
It's just
it
part of the
doesn't
business.
really matter. It's
There's
just
nothing
the
he could do
business of
about
the
it.
country.
Yeah.
And all he can do is make that shitty horror movie and put her scream in.
And the director is like, Jack, that's a great scream. And he's just like, yep.
And it's like
that's
that movie that they're making is like in a sense how De Palma's like looking at Blowout as like it's this piece of like populist entertainment, and that's the only way he can get like something authentic into the world is
Yeah.
by hiding it in that,
Yeah.
and that her scream is the only authentic part of that horror movie.
Yeah.
And then it ends with Travolta and he's like crying listening to her scream because his boss is like, "That's a great scream," and Travolta's just like, "Good scream, good scream,
Great scream.
And
Fade
then
to black.
cut to black, directed by Brian De Palma.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, don't do that.
What a movie!
What a
What a
fucking
movie. What a fucking ending.
A lot of people hated the ending when it first came out.
Yeah, this
Stupid.
this movie bombed at the box office.
Yeah, no good.
Partially as a result of that ending. It had bad word of mouth because people are like, it's a miserable ending. We're in the 80s now. We like optimism.
Yeah, it's like we like happy endings.
Everything in the 70s ends miserably and it made all this money. And then everything in the 80s ends happy.
Yeah.
because people decided we don't like sadness anymore.
Sure.
Because I think we're out of Vietnam.
Yeah, it's like we dealt with Nixon. We have Reagan now. He tells us America's great, so we're just gonna.
We're happy now.
We're happy now.
Yeah.
It's not as if though Brian De Palma's movies end with notes of joy.
Oh yeah, no.
Carrie's very nihilistic.
Yeah, all of his movies are nihilistic.
It's not like people would have been
surprised.
I don't know.
I guess it was just like popular audiences who, because this is
or maybe they're just sick of his shit.
All of Travolta's movies to this point have had like moderately optimistic endings.
Boy in the Plastic Bubble is kind of a mixed bag.
Boy in the Plastic Bubble ends with him probably dying, but he also rides off on a horse.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
ambiguous, but ambiguous in the way that like you kind of know like how it's gonna end.
Still talking about movies Brian De Palma directed. I was like, oh, I didn't put that together.
But even Saturday Night Fever ends on the hint of optimism that men can get better.
Yeah.
And presumably next week we're going to learn that no, they actually can't. Staying alive.
Yeah.
But, this is the first Travolta movie where it has this like miserable ending. And it's very much him maturing as an artist and as a performer. And I think the fact that audiences roundly rejected it is what's going to tee us up for the next 13 years of Travolta's career, where it's like all like 20% Rotten Tomatoes movies with like no real effort on his end or the filmmaker's end to try and make something interesting out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk about that plenty because we have like 20 movies to watch in that area. Oh God.
Do we really? Not 20.
No, it's not. It's
20
like
movies
8.
to make in the 80s.
I think we have like 8.
It's
Well, are we including all the
1,
TV
2,
movies
3,
he did?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12 to watch before we get to Pulp Fiction.
Fuck.
So we have 12 80s movies, which are all like, fairly rough. But it's just, I think it's the failure of this movie that tees him up for that.
Yeah.
Because, to both him and to someone who would finance the movie he's in, serious Travolta's not marketable. And it's not until we get to Pulp Fiction that serious Travolta becomes marketable again.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, wait, this guy's actually pretty good.
It's like a childhood trauma. Because it's like Travolta, who could have been propelled as this like actor, like somebody who like goes for the roles and really takes it seriously and really dives deep. Well, this was his chance to do that, and it kind of spat at his face a little bit of it.
And I don't think it's at all an accident that his next movie is a sequel to his second most successful movie.
Yeah.
Where he's like, this didn't work out. I need to go back to the basics.
Yeah. And which I think about, we're going to talk about Staying Alive, but when you think about, because this is after Rocky.
Yeah.
So Sylvester Stallone directing, John Travolta reprising his Oscar-nominated role.
It probably seemed like a shoo-in.
What?
It probably seemed like a shoo-in. It was going to like be a hit.
Yeah. And it wasn't.
Instead, this movie, which only made $13 million in the box office when it was expected to make 60 to 80.
Yeah.
That's terrible. It's so sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
However,
but thank you, Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, Quentin Tarantino says it's one of his 3 favorite movies.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Man has pretty good taste.
Yeah.
Side note. Do we remember that year where like Quentin Tarantino used to put out his top 10 favorite movies of every year? He's just like put it on his blog or whatever. And there was a year where in 2010, Tangled was his number 1 movie of the year.
I remember Tangled. There's another year.
Lone Ranger was in one of them.
I'm mixing it up with Sofia Coppola and Daddy's Home. I'm mixing that up on that thing on her list. There's another one. There's a weird one on his list. Yeah.
Toy Story 3. I think it was Toy Story 3 and Tangled are both like his top like 5. It's like the man knows. It's Quentin Tarantino. Like you could. I trust.
Good.
Tangled's a great movie.
Tangled.
But he also loved The Lone Ranger, which is actually a real good movie. I enjoy it.
I haven't seen it.
You should. Everyone who thinks that The Lone Ranger is bad should probably rewatch it because it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp aside, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is one of his Blowout's one of his favorite movies. And it's what.
And it will be one of mine.
Yes.
I feel very unequipped to talk about this movie because I only watched it this morning, as did both of you.
I watched mine last night.
I watched
You've
it
never
last
seen
night.
it before, so I started last night, and then I was like, this is going to be better for in the morning because I was just drifting off. Not because of the movie at all, but I feel like the movie was so like effective, and I also don't know. I didn't come away with like that's what this movie's about.
Yeah.
It is.
There's a lot of things.
It's a lot of things. It is very emotional.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just remember I didn't catch a breath.
Yeah.
You
whole
know,
movie.
and yeah, the whole movie. It was something else.
It's a movie about a sound recordist who's the hero.
Yeah,
and
I'm proud of you.
That
I know.
tickles me.
But
Tickle scene.
to quickly finish off the Tarantino bit,
Sure.
It's this movie that will result to him casting him in Pulp Fiction. So this movie does come around and save John Travolta in the future, even if it hurt him at the time. That's pretty much all I had to
Because
say about that.
the movie
Alright.
he does before Pulp Fiction is Look Who's Talking 2?
3.
Is it the third Look Who's Talking?
Look Who's Talking Now.
Oh.
The one where the dog talks. Stu, you still don't know who voices the baby in Look Who's Talking to You.
no,
I do.
Do not look it up. I want you to be thoroughly surprised when we watch that movie.
I'm really scared.
I am begging you not to look up
I
anything
have
about Look Who's
guesses,
Talking.
but like, I don't even know if I want to guess.
No, you do. Just don't
Go into it blind.
Yeah, don't look. Just when we get to that movie, just put it on and watch it and figure out who voices the baby, and I'm going to be very pleased.
Okay.
But we're getting close to that point. And we'll be covering it in the coming weeks,
Yeah.
starting next week with Staying
I
Alive.
feel like we're leaving an era with this episode, Jeff.
Yeah, we're leaving good Travolta era.
What are some of the ones you have after staying alive?
Well, for both Mark and our listeners, our
yeah,
upcoming
this is what to look forward to.
roster is Staying Alive,
Okay.
Two of a Kind, Perfect, Basements, specifically the segment The Dumb Waiter, The Experts, Look Who's Talking, Chains of Gold,
Yeah, not remember.
which is the only movie that John Travolta wrote, Look Who's Talking 2, Eyes of an Angel, Shout, Boris and Natasha, Look Who's Talking Now, and then finally Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, so for folks who have enjoyed our mixed bag of good and bad movies, mostly good.
Yeah.
Mostly, well, we had
We had
Carrie,
one stinker.
We had Grease. We had Saturday Night Fever. We had Urban Cowboy. We now have Blowout.
Yeah.
You know, I think our true horrendous ones, moment by moment. Boy in the Plastic Bubble is kind of a
It was
lukewarm.
pretty fun.
Lukewarm. And then we got.
I gave it a 3 out of 6. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
And then we got the awful Devil's Rain that no
Good
one wants to
movie.
talk. Nope, it's not. It's a terrible movie.
Very
I
good.
can't wait to watch it.
It's horrible.
But here's where your hardcore fans will be determined. Here are the
Yes.
people who are sticking
This
with you.
is where we discover who our real listeners of the show are with the movies that
Well,
are coming
I will
out.
be listening.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Mark, we appreciate it.
I know.
We were glad to have you on. We're thrilled to have you on again in the future.
I can't wait to come back and talk about Basic.
Basic
Oh my
and Ladder
God.
49.
You're on Ladder 49 too.
Yeah, I watched Ladder 49 a lot growing up.
Me too, surprisingly.
Very weird movie.
Well, it's
I've
like
never seen
there
it.
really wasn't like a lot of firefighter movies, and that was
Yeah.
like the firefighter.
That was the
patriotic.
firefighter
There were a lot
movie.
of like, cop movies. It's like cops are awesome and hardcore.
Yeah.
there wasn't really much for like firefighters.
Yeah.
Ladder 49 was that for firefighters.
Well, it was the Basic trailer was on a bunch of DVDs I had when I was a kid, and there's a shot, not to spoil anything in the movie, where John Travolta is holding someone's face next to an airplane propeller. And I would fast forward through that trailer because I couldn't fucking watch it. It was too scary. I would just pick getting the
On
whole
Ladder
menu.
49?
No, this isn't Basic. Basic. When he's
I was like, what is this
what I was
firefighter?
thinking.
Stuart was like, I gotta rewatch this fucking movie.
Rewind Ladder 49.
I was like, John Travolta's
No,
a
in Basic.
firefighter.
And then I watched Basic when I was like 11 or 12, and it was like, yeah, you'll get to it.
Yeah.
You'll get to it.
We will get to that, and we'll be happy to have you with us when that happens.
Can't wait. But this movie was such a joy, and I've
Yes.
been wanting to get around to it for so long.
Yeah,
And I'm happy I did.
I'm happy you were here.
I'm gonna
for it.
fill up De Palma now because it's just too interesting. The ones I've missed. Yeah, I gotta watch Dressed to Kill. I gotta watch
You gotta,
Sisters.
you gotta watch all the modern day hits.
All De Palma's modern day hits.
Yeah, which is
No.
a little rough.
Tony Scott's Domino is the only domino in my heart. I only got room for one domino.
Dressed to Kill, The Untouchables, Body
Yeah.
Double. His most recent movie was Domino with Mel Gibson, right? Oh no,
Jamie Lannister.
yeah, Jamie Lannister.
I can say his name. I just prefer calling him.
Yeah, Jamie Lannister.
Yeah,
Anyone from Game of Thrones is just the name of their character,
100%.
except for Peter Dinklage. Anyway, thank you all, folks, for listening. Next week, as we said, you can tune in for our episode on Staying Alive, beginning the descent into madness with Stu and I. Oh gosh, we have like a empty ditch of guests in the coming months, so it's just going to be us struggling.
It's gonna be
Just do
another
it now.
See, people by now would have already listened to the moment by moment episode.
Yeah, it's very much gonna be the moment by moment episode,
Expect more of the moment by moment, which is we're gonna see a dip in followers and streams.
I can't email Barack Obama again, so it's not gonna be like the moment.
You
by
get
moment.
one.
I get one chance to email him.
Yeah. There's more celebrities we can email to get on our podcast.
What if one of them comes on?
Well, we still got to get that astronaut for the IMAX.
Yeah, that's a
documentary.
Find the co-director's email, the secret co-director. Of this movie.
John G. Fox.
Yeah. This
is my message to John G. Fox, who I know you're still out there. We will find you, and we will bring our microphones,
and you will come on our podcast. Anyway, yes, make sure to please rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. As a reminder, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
Yeah.
We appreciate every subscribe. We appreciate every like, every listen. It really does help, and it really does make the difference. So thank you to those who have. And if you haven't, we'd appreciate it. Additionally, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Travolting Pod. There's a lot of fun stuff there. You can pop into our Reddit /Travolting.
Has anything happened with that?
I've not checked it.
I have not checked
since
it.
I made it like 6 weeks ago. Who knows? There might be a thriving community.
There isn't.
I don't
think
know.
there is.
If you have any questions or comments, you can email us travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney. You can find Stu
at Stuart Elmore 95 on Instagram.
You can find Mark if you want to.
I love off diversity.
Okay. If you want to be seen. And then special thanks to Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design.
We love you, Becca.
And Michael Van Bodegum Smith for our theme music.
Michael,
it's good.
Yeah, it's good, right?
It's really good.
It's really good music.
Oh, Michael's so good. Michael, shout out to you if you're listening. I hope you are.
Good job, Michael.
Should be playing the music now.
Yeah, you are hearing the music right now.
I'm kind of bopping to this.
As we slowly fade out, and wish you all a wonderful week.
Thank you, folks.